The only hero who can save the world resolutely chooses to join the demon army after crossing over, all because of one mistake by the goddess. The hero, who should have crossed over to the beginner village, accidentally arrives at the Demon King's headquarters. Even worse, the strongest fighter stands right before him, yet he's completely unaware because the goddess told him his first stop would be the beginner village, where the monsters would all be weaklings. So, the hero attacks the demon without hesitation, but the result is unsurprising. He's defeated. So, the hero is thrown into prison. Unwilling to give up, he shouts that he wants to fight that minotaur again. However, his loud commotion attracts the headquarters' second-in-command, Captain Gobzo. Gobzo lightly places his great sword on the ground, and the tremendous sound nearly scares the hero to death. Realizing the weapon is authentic, the hero settles down. Gobzo warns the boy that he will be cooked into a stew if he causes any further disturbances before walking away. Left alone, the hero sits in a state of confusion, recalling the goddess's promises of an easy, pleasant adventure filled with the company of a village chief's beautiful 18 daughters. He is unaware that these were lies told by the goddess to meet her performance quotas for sending souls to other worlds. As he struggles to understand his situation, a voice from an adjacent cell asks if he is the new hero. He responds by asking for the speaker's identity, and learns that the other person is also a hero. They are currently held in the slave dungeon of the Demon King's castle. The hero in the next cell grins and calls out to see how many others claiming to be heroes are still alive. The entire dungeon erupts in response as various S-rank heroes confirm their presence. The neighbor explains that there are over 100 heroes trapped there, all overseen by the vicious minotaur Lodrin and his subordinate, Gobzo. The hero's voice falters as he blames their current suffering on a demon named Rachel. This name shocks our boy, as Rachel is the name of the goddess. He learns that while a hero should typically start in a city, Rachel's negligence caused them all to be teleported to the wrong location. Since these beginner heroes possess no real abilities, they are unable to fight back against this disastrous start. The following day, Hyunsuk experiences the true meaning of a hellish existence. His life now consists of performing forced labor for the Demon King without any compensation. Compounding his misery, once the workday concludes, Gobzo uses him as a physical mount for transport. As he carries the small goblin back to the slave dungeon, Hyunsuk quietly harbors thoughts of one day eliminating his captor. Exhausted upon his return to the cell, Hyunsuk rests briefly before recalling the goddess's mention of a hero's status window privilege. He quickly summons the interface to review his attributes. While his statistics appear superior to those of an average person, he attributes this to his former life as a universal boxing champion. When he notes an endurance stat of 31, the hero in the adjacent cell is visibly startled. The neighbor remarks on how impressive it is to have such a high stat at level 1, though Hyunsuk remains indifferent, noting that he is still just a slave. Despite his lack of interest, the other hero insists that Hyunsuk is special and possesses the potential to escape and become a true hero. Late into the night, he privately checks his status window again to see if he overlooked any details. He eventually discovers a section regarding hero points, and recalls that when he asked the other hero about them earlier that day, the man claimed to have no such feature. As Hyunsuk ponders whether he is the only genuine hero, a sudden flash of light reveals the goddess Rachel. She greets him and offers to explain the purpose of the hero points, describing them as the essential element for creating the ultimate hero. Rather than being grateful for the information, Hyunsuk becomes furious and expresses a desire to physically vent his frustrations on her. After a brief altercation, the goddess begs for mercy and confesses that her mistake was caused by spilling coffee on the magic circle, which botched his teleportation. She explains that as punishment from the higher gods, she has been assigned as his personal goddess until he defeats the Demon King. The goddess notes that our MC as a triple S rank hero, the task should be manageable, but Hyunsuk shows no interest. Having spent his previous life as a fighter only to die single and virgin, he admits he is tired of a cycle of violence and prefers a quiet existence. This leaves the goddess stunned, as she cannot return to her world until the mission is complete. Before she can continue her persuasion, a noise from outside startles Hyunsuk. He quickly signals for her to be quiet, but she assures him that she can remain unseen using invisibility magic. The visitor is Gobzo, who informs Hyunsuk that the leader, Lodrin, wishes to see him. Inside Lodrin's office, Gobzo had praised Hyunsuk's work ethic to his boss, sparking Lodrin's curiosity. Lodrin expresses his approval of the hero's hard work, and offers to appoint him as the chief slave. The invisible goddess is horrified by this development, viewing the demon as a rival for Hyunsuk's loyalty. She urgently whispers for him to reject the offer, insisting that a human hero must never submit to the demon army. Instead, Hyunsuk grins and immediately kneels, loudly thanking Lodrin and promising not to disappoint him. 3 days later, Hyunsuk officially begins his new role. He maintains a relentless pace, mocking the slaves by telling them his grandmother runs faster than they do, and insisting that no one leaves until their tasks are finished. He is visibly satisfied with his position as a slave supervisor, laughing heartily at the authority he now wields. The display leaves the onlookers below stunned. They whisper among themselves, questioning if he has lost his mind and expressing disbelief that he was once a human hero. Even the goddess Rachel, watching nearby, finds his behavior excessive. She confronts him, calling him crazy and warning that they will be in significant trouble if he continues this way. Hyun-seok ignores her concerns, internally dismissively referring to her as a little sparrow who fails to grasp his plan. He then turns his attention back to a slave on the ground, demanding they stop acting like a turtle and get back to work. After pushing the slaves to their limits, he makes sure to salute toward Lodrin's office, loudly affirming his dedication to the job. This sycophancy infuriates the goddess. She begins to lecture him incessantly about the duties of a hero, until Hyun-seok feels he can no longer listen. To settle the matter, he opens his hero panel. The display notes that due to a mistake by an idiot goddess, he was teleported to the Demon King's dungeon, and his current mission is to gain the favor of the Demon Army officer, Lodrin. He points out to the goddess that he is simply following the prescribed mission, but she remains skeptical. This reminder causes her to quiet down and cease her nagging during work hours. She begins to wonder if that truly is his mission, questioning why the higher-ups, the only ones with the authority to change mission content, would issue such an order. While she is lost in thought, Gobzo arrives to inform Hyun-seok that Lodrin wishes to see him. Hyun-seok goes to the office happily. After 2 days of observation, Lodrin expresses his approval of the young man's efforts. Noticing a strange look on the commander's face, Hyun-seok quickly salutes to change the subject before things become awkward. He proposes a plan to train the slaves into an elite work team, where one person can do the work of 3, promising that the Demon King's castle will be completed within a week. Initially, Lodrin is hesitant, noting that human bodies are typically too weak for such a regimen. However, because the proposal comes from Hyun-seok, he agrees. Grateful for the approval, Hyun-seok rushes back to the dungeon. Upon his arrival, Rachel bursts into tears, lamenting that her hero has gone mad by bowing to the demon army and oppressing his own people. Irritated by the commotion, Hyun-seok eventually reveals his true intentions. He explains that he has no desire to be an enemy to humanity, and is actually planning to use the trained slaves to start a rebellion. He has calculated that there are 3,000 slaves against only 500 demon soldiers, and a human base located nearby would serve as a perfect refuge after their escape. His logic is so sound that the goddess finally shows a hint of admiration, realizing he isn't just a simple fighter. Having successfully gained Lodrin's favor, Hyun-seok receives 100 hero points. He eagerly opens the hero shop to see what treasures are available, but the contents are underwhelming. He finds an F-rank skill for holding your breath, and another F-rank skill which allows him to hold his poop for a longer period. The goddess laughs at his disappointment, jokingly telling him not to be discouraged because a level 2 shop might offer larger portions of waste. Hyun-seok cuts her off, reminding her that she claimed these points were the key to becoming the ultimate hero. The next day begins with the slaves reciting the 3rd Legion's motto, declaring themselves part of the great demon army and pledging to defeat the humans. Watching from the tower, Lodrin is pleased, noting that the young man has not disappointed him. However, his pride is interrupted when Gobzo rushes in frantically with news that the human army is advancing. The 8th Division has already fallen, and it is only a matter of time before the enemy reaches their position. Although Lodrin is reluctant to abandon the nearly completed fortress, he eventually yields to Gobzo's insistence on an immediate retreat. Looking down at the courtyard, Lodrin considers that the most precious treasure he possesses is Hyun-seok. He orders Gobzo to retreat first, stating that he will follow later with the boy. Lodrin then leaps from the window, an action Hyun-seok notices from below. Hyun-seok realizes that combat training will have to be cancelled, and notes that the commander has been monitoring him. Lodrin lands behind Hyun-seok and tells him there is no time and they must retreat. Hyun-seok is confused by the sudden change, but the conversation is cut short as the human army arrives on the scene. Following their commander's orders, the humans charge, and the war breaks out. The enemy commander spots Lodrin and identifies him as the Red Nightmare, ordering his troops to make killing him their top priority. Hyun-seok realizes this might be his opportunity. He considers that if he stabs Lodrin in the back, he could return to human society as a celebrated hero. However, as he weighs his options, a human knight charges toward them at extreme speed. Lodrin simply reaches out and crushes the knight's skull, before slamming the body into the ground. The force of the strike ripples across the field, defeating nearly all the nearby human soldiers. Immediately after the display of power, Lodrin turns to Hyun-seok and asks if he is all right. Terrified, Hyun-seok salutes and confirms he is fine, promising to retreat at once. Despite defeating an entire squad single-handedly, the pressure from human reinforcements forces them to continue their retreat. Hyun-seok feels stunned, believing his adventure and his second life are effectively over. He realizes Lodrin is so powerful that a single strike has shattered his dreams of escaping back to humanity. The goddess tries to look on the bright side, suggesting that going to the demon army headquarters is a chance to gather intelligence, but Hyunsuk dismisses her as a liar. Their bickering wakes a sleeping Lodrin, who asks if Hyunsuk said something. Hyunsuk quickly denies it, claiming he was just expressing how honored he feels to be in the commander's company. Upon hearing this, Lodrin's expression softens, and he decides that once they reach headquarters, he will officially recommend Hyunsuk for the demon army. Hyunsuk is left petrified, realizing that an escape in the future is now nearly impossible. 5 hours later, the convoy arrives at the demon army headquarters. Upon arrival, Lodrin prepares to take Hyunsuk to meet the commander. Although he acknowledges that the introduction is somewhat unconventional, he remains confident that the commander will take a liking to the young man. However, he warns Hyunsuk to be extremely careful with his words, as a single mistake could be fatal. The two soon arrive outside the hall, where Lodrin announces himself to Commander Hermes. A gentle female voice from within grants them permission to enter. Inside, Lodrin immediately takes responsibility for the loss of the fortress, but Hermes disagrees, blaming the failure on the supply officer's inability to provide materials. She calmly remarks that she will prepare a body bag for the officer. As she speaks, she releases a terrifying aura that makes it nearly impossible for Hyunsuk to breathe. His limbs tremble instinctively, and he realizes her oppressive power far exceeds anyone he has ever encountered. Eventually, Hermes withdraws her aura and inquires about Hyunsuk's identity. Lodrin introduces him as the person he mentioned previously, and expresses his intent to have him join the demon army. Hermes appears instantly in front of Hyunsuk, showing interest in the recommendation, but noting that his human body makes him vulnerable to being eaten by others at the headquarters. Terrified, Hyunsuk looks to Lodrin for protection. Lodrin promises to personally train him, but Hermes rejects the idea, believing it is a waste of a high-ranking officer's time to train a human. To resolve the issue, Hermes reaches into her mouth and rummages around as her body twists violently. She eventually produces a strange creature from the top of her head, introducing it as Popo. She appoints Hyunsuk as the creature's pet guardian, asking him if he finds Popo cute. Though Hyunsuk finds the creature anything but cute, the pressure from Hermes forces him to accept the role, claiming it is an honor to care for Popo. Hermes tosses the creature to him and adds a warning. Popo must be fed regularly, as he becomes angry when hungry and tends to eat his guardians. Following this encounter, Hyunsuk officially joins the demon army and receives a new hero mission to win Popo's affection. He looks at the sleeping creature, questioning how this task relates to becoming a hero. His thoughts are interrupted by a balding goblin who enters the room, identifying himself as Hyunsuk's partner in caring for the pet. Hyunsuk maintains a polite front while realizing that the goblin would likely sacrifice him if danger arose. The goblin commandingly tells Hyunsuk that they must prepare dinner, but Popo wakes up before he can finish. Terrified, the goblin hides behind Hyunsuk and tries to offer him to the creature as food, attempting to restrain him so Popo can eat easily. He reasons that since one of them has to die, it might as well be the newcomer. However, the goblin underestimates Hyunsuk's strength and is quickly thrown aside. After Popo finishes eating the goblin, he remains hungry and turns his sights on the invisible goddess, Rachel. She screams for Hyunsuk to save her as Popo's anger intensifies, eventually leading him to target Hyunsuk as well. Desperate for a way to calm the creature, Hyunsuk has a sudden inspiration. He tells Popo that they are going outside to play, causing the creature's eyes to clear instantly. Popo then pounces into his arms, reacting exactly as Hyunsuk had hoped. Soon after, Hyunsuk brings Popo outside, though he is entirely unaware of where the kitchen is located. While they are wandering around, a goblin unexpectedly appears before them. Hyunsuk quickly calls out to the creature, asking for the location of the kitchen. The goblin replies that the kitchen is to the right, and then immediately runs off without looking back. This scene causes Hyunsuk to laugh out loud, wondering if everyone in the demon army is that timid. He concludes that he can definitely rely on the dog's power from now on. However, just as he is feeling proud of himself, he turns his head only to find that Popo has already disappeared. He and the goddess search frantically for the dog, but fortunately, their hard work pays off and they soon spot Popo again. Hyunsuk calls him his precious and tells him how worried he was, but as he looks down, he notices something is wrong. He asks Popo if he just bit someone to death. Just as he is reeling from the shock, a loud shout comes from nearby, announcing that Captain Regis has been eaten. Rachel's smile freezes instantly as she realizes who else it could possibly be. Hyunsuk quickly grabs Popo and begins to run, with the goblins quickly following in pursuit. Unfortunately for them, their short legs are unable to catch up with Hyunsuk. However, by an unfortunate coincidence, Hyunsuk and the others run straight into a dead end. When they turn around, they find a large group of goblins has already surrounded them. One goblin tells the human that he will be taken down for killing the captain. Another goblin licks his lips, expressing his hope that the captain hasn't been digested yet, as he has always wanted to taste what a captain tastes like. Faced with this nearly desperate situation, Hyunsuk suddenly has a flash of inspiration and thinks he might be able to intimidate them. He asks them how they dare to be so rude while shaking Popo in his arms. He asks if they know who the creature is, identifying him as Popo. As his words fall, the goblins on site almost instinctively step back, because they all know well how terrifying Commander Hermes is. While they know it is the commander's pet, there is still one goblin who is not afraid of death and suspects the human is lying to them. In response, Hyunsuk crouches down and strokes Popo's chin a few times to activate its beast mode. As soon as he releases his hand, Popo immediately pounces on the skeptical goblin, and just like that, in just 15 seconds, Popo has already eaten the goblin clean. He asks if there is anyone else who doesn't believe, and the remaining goblins bow in submission. But at the same time, Hermes' voice suddenly comes from behind Hyunsuk, wondering why it was so noisy, and remarking that it is just a cute newcomer doing something interesting. Afterwards, he is called to her office. After learning the ins and outs of the matter, Hermes laughs out loud. She asks if he is using Popo's identity to survive, and seeing this, Hyunsuk immediately kneels to admit his mistake. However, Hermes actually thinks there is nothing wrong with his actions. She lifts Hyunsuk's chin and remarks that he is a clever human, but tells him that as a man, he should learn the demon army's tradition of solving things with force. Hermes returns to her seat and asks if he is interested in becoming a senior officer of the demon army. Hyunsuk is instantly stunned, thinking that with his meager skills, the only way to become an officer would be to sell himself out. Hermes explains that it is difficult with his current strength and details the rules. She explains that demons seize rank through dueling, and tells him he can no longer use her or Popo's names. She offers to protect him for 1 month, after which he must defeat an opponent she chooses. If he wins, she will continue protecting him for another month until he climbs to the position of battalion commander. Hyunsuk swallows and asks what happens if he loses, to which Hermes grins wickedly and suggests he better die in battle. Having no choice, Hyunsuk agrees. Since she set the opponent right there on the spot, he feels he only has 30 days left to live. He dejectedly goes to the kitchen to find food for Popo, but upon arriving, he discovers the door is covered in blood. He only dares to stick his head in, ready to escape at any time, and offers a greeting. A red goblin named Kulkan turns his head and identifies him as the human the commander mentioned. Hyunsuk quickly nods with a smile and explains that he needs food for Popo. Unexpectedly, the other says there isn't any without even thinking. This shocks Hyunsuk, and Kulkan explains he has no obligation to help, as the commander's only order was that they cannot touch him. He tells Hyunsuk that if he wants meat, he must participate in the hunt himself. He points to a group of goblins who are dismembering and eating a Captain Puck, commenting on the good taste. Seeing this, Hyunsuk is stunned, realizing these people are demons rather than cooks. To avoid becoming Popo's food, he chooses to go hunting. On the first hunt, he encounters deadly danger, but a group of goblins blocks the attack for him. Looking at the nearly dead creature, he wonders who is hunting whom. Rachel suggests they escape while they can, and Hyunsuk agrees, but as he lifts his foot, Kulkan calls out to him. He tells Hyunsuk there is no need to lead the charge because the hunt is already complete. This surprises Hyunsuk, as they killed the massive creature in only a dozen seconds. Despite the success, the goblins paid a heavy price with 13 dead and 25 seriously injured. Kulkan shows no sadness over the casualties and is satisfied, telling the team to rest before the next hunt. After thinking, Hyunsuk abandons the idea of escaping. Rachel asks if he is really going to hunt monsters with them, but he explains he doesn't need to do that. He realizes that as long as he participates in the kills, he can gain experience and level up. He decides that as long as the final blow is his, he can get all the experience without trying hard. Rachel is stunned and calls him a genius, but accuses him of taking shortcuts. Hyunsuk is determined to become strong within the month and approaches Kulkan. The chef seems to see through his earlier intention to escape and notes his return. Hyunsuk plays dumb and expresses his desire to participate in the hunt. Kulkan stares at him intently, making Hyunsuk's heart race as he wonders if the chef is different from previous officers. However, Kulkan laughs out loud, finding it cute that a human says such brave words. Hyunsuk credits the chef's influence, and the flattery leads Kulkan to decide that Hyunsuk should lead the team. This stuns Hyunsuk, who only wanted to leech experience, and he tries to decline by saying a humble human shouldn't stand before noble demons. While they are arguing, a panicked goblin suddenly runs over from nearby and immediately explains the situation to Kulkan, reporting that a pack of wild wolves is attacking. In stark contrast to the goblin's frantic state, Kulkan appears very calm as he grips the cleaver behind him. He refers to the wolves as more good meat to eat, and tells the little ones to, "Let's go." Hyunsuk grins slightly at this, thinking it is perfect and that he just needs to time it right to land the final blow. Rachel tells him from nearby that she will help him too, and immediately uses magic, which greatly enhances Hyunsuk's physical strength for a duration of 3 minutes. She expects to be praised for this, but is instead met with a fist the size of a sandbag as Hyunseok asks why she had this and didn't use it earlier. With the enhancement, Hyunseok's confidence surges as he notes there are only 5 black wolves. He suddenly leaps up and punches a dying black wolf on the ground, resulting in 2 consecutive level ups. Unexpectedly, by stealing just 1 kill, he directly gains 4 whole levels. However, just as he is overjoyed, he sees a nearby goblin attempting to finish off another wolf. He pushes the goblin away and claims his foot slipped. Looking at the black wolves lying on the ground, Hyunseok greedily licks his lips and decides that all the final blows will be his. Under his leadership, the 5 black wolves are quickly eliminated. Hyunseok intends to leave right away, but Kulkan unexpectedly calls him back and tells him it is time to enjoy the feast, noting that it is a chef's privilege to enjoy the freshest delicacies. He hands Hyunseok a piece of meat and suggests that as someone who contributed, he should try some too. Looking at the bleeding raw meat, Hyunseok feels deeply resistant but does not dare refuse the kind gesture, so he forces himself to take a bite. He finds the meat itself to be fine, but concludes that eating it plain and raw does not taste good at all. As he chews, an idea strikes him that if he can make more delicious food, he might be able to use it to control them. He does not hesitate any longer and immediately purchases a bottle of MSG from the hero shop. This triggers strong disapproval from Rachel, who believes something as precious as hero points should not be wasted on trivial items like seasoning. She argues that even if they think it tastes good, it won't make a difference, and tells him he needs to see the bigger picture. Hyunseok ignores her opinion and instead picks up a piece of meat and starts grilling it, intending to silence her with the results. He tells her to just watch and claims that with this method, even a shoe insole would taste incredible. The moment he sprinkles seasoning on the tender, medium-rare grilled meat, an intensely rich aroma bursts forth. Hyunseok declares himself the culinary god of this world and feels extremely satisfied with his creation. Once it is finished, he immediately brings it to head chef Kulkan, believing freshly grilled meat is the most tempting. However, Kulkan only glances at it and politely declines, stating he is already full. Hyunseok does not give up, calling it his ultimate creation and pleading for the chef to honor him by trying it, saying he would have no regrets even if he died right now. Under this repeated pleading, Kulkan finally softens, takes the meat, and bites into it. The single bite unexpectedly transports the chef back to his childhood, and he remarks that it is the taste of his mother. Extremely satisfied, Kulkan thanks Hyunseok by giving him a large bag of fresh meat in return and tells him to feel free to find him again if he needs anything. Hyunseok carries the fresh meat back to his quarters and announces his return to Popo. Unexpectedly, as soon as he speaks, Popo lunges at him with his jaws wide open. In desperation, Hyunseok quickly pulls the fresh meat from the bag, finally managing to satisfy the creature's appetite. He tells his buddy to eat as much as he wants. With a source of food secured, Hyunseok no longer has to worry about becoming a meal, and instead becomes Popo's master. After devouring 30 kilos of fresh meat, Popo's affection for Hyunseok greatly increases. A notification congratulates him on completing the quest and gaining Popo's favor, rewarding him with 200 hero points. This success greatly boosts Hyunseok's confidence, and he notes that everything went exactly as he planned. He immediately opens his status panel, which leaves Rachel stunned as she watches from the side. She asks if he is planning to save those 22 free attribute points for his next life. Hyunseok immediately retorts that a certain idiot didn't tell him what those things were for, which successfully silences Rachel since she has the duty to educate him about everything in this world. She agrees, and begins explaining that attributes are divided into 4 categories: strength, agility, stamina, and magic power. Hyunseok immediately interrupts because he sees a 5th category called charm. Rachel explains that one is different and is a hidden attribute that cannot be obtained through a vocation, only improved through training. She adds that from what she can see, Hyunseok's charm toward male monsters is actually quite high. She continues the explanation by stating that physical attributes are more important in the early stages, but things change in the late game when magic power becomes dominant. Hyunseok follows this advice and allocates most of his points to physical attributes. Rachel then instructs him to go to the hero shop and purchase the basic principles of magic control, explaining it will teach him how to control magic power for about 100 hero points. However, Hyunseok searches the shop repeatedly and cannot find the guide anywhere. Rachel looks completely confused, insisting she remembers it being one of the most common items. Hyunseok lets out a deep sigh, thinking his goddess might finally be useful, but realizing he was overthinking it. Rachel continues to swear that the item should be in there. 3 weeks quickly pass in this manner, and during this time, Hyunseok finally reaches level 100. He reflects that it took longer than he expected, and concludes that he must be the hardest working hero in this world, though the prolonged and intense work leaves him in physical agony. Rachel asks what he is talking about and suggests that he is basically an idol now. This word instantly enrages Hyunseok, and he slaps Rachel to the ground. She looks wronged and explains that she was just trying to be nice, noting that it normally takes half a year to reach level 100 and that no offense was intended. Hyunseok retorts that she brought that on herself. Just as the two are bickering, the door bursts open and a goblin rushes in frantically. He addresses Hyunsuk as Beast Tamer and informs him that the commander demands to see him. Receiving the order, Hyunsuk does not dare to delay and quickly arrives at Hermes' office. His physical transformation amazes even Hermes. In less than a month, his physique has visibly grown stronger and his magic power has even doubled. Hyunsuk quickly makes an excuse, trying to brush it off by claiming it all came from the hard work of finding food for Popo. However, this does not escape Hermes' sharp eyes, and she asks if it is because of the hero system. Hyunsuk immediately breaks into a cold sweat, wondering if she knows he is a hero. Hermes stands up and tells him that she saw through everything from the very first time they met. She explains that the only reason she didn't say anything was because he is deeply favored by Lodrin, and now there is the additional reason of the upcoming duel in a few days. Hermes suddenly releases a terrifying aura from her body, transforms into her true form, and lunges at Hyunsuk. She stops when they are less than half a meter apart, and warns him that if he doesn't want to die, he should work hard and try to make her happy. After she sends him back to his quarters, Hyunsuk ponders what exactly will excite the audience, whether they want flashy performances or overwhelming domination, because he knows that if he cannot satisfy Hermes, he will die. Rachel performs as consistently uselessly as ever, offering no help and simply panicking about their impending deaths. Hyunsuk decides to open the hero shop, believing that knowing both himself and his enemy is the key to victory. However, aside from the opponent's name, they know absolutely nothing. He decides to purchase a power gauge to measure combat power. When he points it at Rachel, it shows a combat power of 375, but without a reference point, he doesn't know what that level represents. Rachel suggests checking his own power and stands behind the gauge to point it at him. The number instantly stuns her, and she questions if the device is broken, as it shows Hyunsuk's combat power is a staggering 1,560. Hyunsuk takes the gauge back and asks what is so surprising, remarking that anyone can see she is the weakest one there. Rachel begins to tear up, mentioning that before being sent to this world, her power was over 10,000. To confirm the gauge is working, Hyunsuk checks Popo's power level. He is stunned to see the number is 47,400, and remarks that he can't believe they are both weaker than a dog, even questioning if Popo is a purebred. He decides to take the gauge outside to check others. He finds the weakest are the young goblins, while most others are roughly at his level, but those with commander ranks all exceed 10,000. Rachel confirms that his opponent is a platoon leader named Iskulkin, who is reportedly a half-orc with a pig's head. Hyunsuk estimates a platoon leader's power should be around 3,000, and thinks that if he levels up, he can handle it. However, reality strikes him hard when he sees the actual opponent. Hyunsuk is shocked into a cold sweat when he sees the guy has over 6,000 combat power, realizing that fighting him would be suicide. While he is in shock, the hero system pops up with a message stating that his chance of beating the pig is virtually zero. It notes that not giving up in desperate situations is his strength and offers a quest to increase his combat power to 3,000 within 1 week. The reward is 300 hero points. Hyunsuk grins, feeling the quest appeared at the perfect time. He vows that no matter what, he will do this and survive to the end, telling the observer and Hermes to just wait for him. The next morning, Hyunsuk returns to the kitchen where Kulkan is present. Looking at Hyunsuk's power gauge, Kulkan cannot help but ask about it, remarking that it is a nice fashion accessory and wondering where he got it. Hyunsuk scratches his head and explains that he saw others had one, so he bought himself one too. Kulkan turns away, noting that he doesn't understand young people's fashion sense these days, and tells Hyunsuk to get ready for hunting. Hyunsuk responds with a respectful, "Yes, sir." While Kulkan's back is turned, Hyunsuk quickly checks him with the power gauge, and discovers a reading of over 35,000. He realizes this isn't the level of an ordinary commander. He then quickly scans everyone in the kitchen, and sees that their combat power is all significantly higher than ordinary soldiers. He wonders if this is what comes from constantly fighting monsters. Looking at the situation, an idea suddenly forms in Hyunsuk's mind. He thinks that if he finds someone here with similar combat power to spar with, it would let him know his actual level. He asks Commander Kulkan to please allow him to spar with one of the kitchen staff. Kulkan is taken aback by the request for a spar. Hyunsuk explains that he thinks this kind of training will be more helpful for his future. Kulkan looks serious. He feels that Hyunsuk as a human is already strong enough and doesn't need to rush his training. Hyunsuk shows a disappointed expression and remarks that it is a shame as he brought some meat to grill as thanks today, but guesses they will have to eat it another time. As Hyunsuk pretends to put the meat from his backpack away, Kulkan grabs him. He tells him they should start right now and asks who he wants to fight. The kitchen soldiers gather around after hearing the news, wondering what is going on and asking if they need to go hunting. They are told that Hyunsuk and Gorbakum are going to spar. Slow-witted kitchen soldiers discuss the matter seriously. They worry that if Hyunsuk dies, there will be no one to grill the meat, and since they can't survive without meat, they suggest killing Gorbakum first. Kulkan steps in to mediate, telling the fools to shut up. He explains that sparring isn't killing, but just testing each other's strength. He turns to Gorbakum, Hyunsuk's sparring partner, to make sure he understands the situation. He tells him he absolutely cannot kill Hyunsuk. He says he can fight, but must hold back. Gorbakum answers with a stupid expression, casually scratching his head with vacant eyes, and looking completely unreliable. Kulkan adds that he shouldn't hold back too much either, but should just hurt him enough so he really feels it. He says it would be best if he doesn't break anything, noting that sparring is really tricky. He promises Gorbakum more meat after it is over if he does his best. Upon hearing the word meat, Gorbakum's eyes instantly light up. He tells the head chef to leave it to him. Gorbakum and Hyunsuk stand facing each other, maintaining a certain distance. Kulkan serves as referee and raises his arm. He calls out for them to be ready and then gives the command to begin. As Kulkan's arm drops, the match begins. Hyunsuk charges at Gorbakum at full speed from the start. Gorbakum raises his arm, thinking that even a gentle strike is enough to crush his face. However, unexpectedly, Gorbakum's fist doesn't hit Hyunsuk. It only cuts through empty air. At the same time, he sees Hyunsuk's leg strike and seems to hear the wind slicing through the air. Unsurprisingly, Gorbakum is defeated by Hyunsuk with just one kick. 2 hours later, the 3rd Legion arrives at the forest behind headquarters. Although no monsters have appeared yet, Hyunsuk is already in an unusually excited state. To be honest, he didn't expect to win, but he knocked down a beastman with twice his combat power in one strike. So now he knows that combat power doesn't determine everything, and he feels he stands a fighting chance against Iskulk. Finally, the news Hyunsuk has been waiting for arrives. A large number of young Taras have appeared ahead, as this area is Taras's territory. Kulkan is puzzled and notes, this is a bit strange, as this region normally doesn't have Taras populations. This makes the usually decisive Kulkan somewhat hesitant. Hyunsuk approaches him and asks if there is a problem or if Taras meat is not tasty. Kulkan says no, that Taras meat is quite delicious, especially the chewy Taras bone marrow, which is an absolute delicacy. But he explains that Taras are social creatures, and if they aren't careful, they might swarm out in groups, especially the mother Taras, the Taras queen, who has strong maternal instincts. He warns that if they provoke her children, it will be very troublesome. He wonders if they should call it a day. Hyunsuk scratches his head and laughs, but Kulkan says calmly that since Taras meat is delicious, they still need to capture them. He notes that anyway, the Taras queen rarely appears outside her nest, so it should be fine. He raises his giant cleaver and tells everyone to charge, declaring that today's snack is Taras bone marrow. The kitchen soldiers sound the battle cry and begin charging. Kulkan tells them to be careful and capture them alive because their bodily fluids are the essence. As the kitchen soldiers begin fighting, Hyunsuk starts his performance. He accidentally knocks a soldier away and then steals the final blow on monsters. He tells himself the final blow is his because he needs to level up. Hyunsuk kicks down one after another as his level continuously rises. Rachel calls him a hero and says he is really good at kill stealing. Hyunsuk laughs happily and says, of course, thinking that at this rate, he'll definitely surpass Iskulkan soon. But suddenly the ground begins shaking with a tremendous noise. Hyunsuk looks around in confusion, wondering what is going on. The kitchen soldiers are equally shocked. But soon, the culprit behind the tremors quietly reveals itself. It's the Taras queen. Her massive body nearly darkens the sky itself. Looking at the pile of young Taras's corpses on the ground, the queen's body trembles with rage. She wants to make this group pay with their lives immediately. Hyunsuk raises his head to look, wanting to know just how much combat power this queen, whom even Kulkan fears, possesses. But just as Hyunsuk points the power gauge at her, the power gauge immediately sounds an alarm and says, immeasurable. Hyunsuk turns his head and asks Kulkan what they should do now, only to see Kulkan's fleeing back. Kulkan tells everyone that fate may bring them together again and to try to stay alive. Hyunsuk is stunned and calls him an irresponsible bastard. In this tense moment, the Taras queen's legs shoot toward everyone like bullets. A large group of goblins, who don't react in time, are instantly killed. But the queen still isn't satisfied, and releases a roar that echoes through the heavens, nearly shattering Hyunsuk's eardrums. He wonders why this thing is making such a weird noise. But before he can figure it out, Rachel's voice suddenly sounds in his ear, telling the hero to look behind him. Alerted, Hyunsuk turns his head and sees a shocking sight as countless young Taras are swarming toward him. He is told to run and has no choice but to flee with the main group. Those who run too slowly are instantly killed by the queen. Anguish screams spread through the crowd, but Hyunsuk can't worry about that. He knows if he stops, he's as good as dead. He doesn't want to die. After running for 10 minutes, Hyunsuk quickly reaches a cave and asks if they should be safe hiding in there. Rachel nods and confirms it is safe, stating she checked and there are no monsters inside. Although Hyunsuk does not trust her words, he feels that the inside should at least be safer than being out in the open. After thinking for a moment, he enters anyway. The cave is deep and spacious, appearing as if it were naturally formed. Rachel asks if that doesn't mean the Taras queen can squeeze in there too, and her words instantly freeze him. He quickly scans the surroundings and discovers a puddle of green slime on the rocks, wondering if it could have been left by a terrace. However, he recalls Kulkan saying there were no terrace around there, so they continue deeper inside, only to discover an even more terrifying sight. The depths of the cave are covered with countless Taurus eggs. Hyunsuk looks at everything before him in disbelief, and asks if this is the Taurus queen's nest, stating that they cannot stay there. However, while he is in a daze, a Terrace's spike rapidly strikes at him. Hyunsuk dodges to the side and wonders why there is an adult Terrace there as well. With no time to think, he randomly picks a direction and starts running. Soon, he is tripped by an unknown object. In desperation, Hyunsuk randomly grabs an egg from the ground to use as a weapon. He throws it at the Taurus with all his might, and unsurprisingly, the creature catches it. However, the Taurus holds the egg very carefully, as if it is afraid to break it. Hyunsuk looks at the Taurus, which has stopped attacking, and asks what is going on and if it is trying to protect that egg. Rachel is silent for a few seconds before suggesting that she thinks it likes the thing he threw, noting there is slime all over it. Hyunsuk turns to look at the eggs on the ground, and a sudden idea forms in his mind. He wonders if these could be Taurus eggs. Hyunsuk grins and picks up another egg, an action that instantly makes the Taurus tense up. He then assumes a throwing stance and deliberately throws it away from the creature, but the doting adult Taurus still catches it. Hyunsuk notes its terrifying speed, and Rachel asks what they should do next. Hyunsuk smirks and tells her it is obvious, noting he has over 100 eggs there. Over 10 minutes later, the adult Taurus is exhausted and panting. Despite its efforts, most of the eggs could not be saved. Hyunsuk extends his hand to Rachel and tells her to give him the next egg. She informs him that was the last one, and upon hearing this news, Hyunsuk is instantly stunned, stating that this is bad. The enraged adult Taurus no longer holds back and immediately charges at extreme speed. Hyunsuk yells for her to buff him quickly. Rachel complies, and Hyunsuk's arm glows with a blue light. He tells himself that the thing has become weak from catching eggs, so he can win. Hyunsuk raises his fist and strikes with all his might. The moment they connect, the Taurus's shell instantly shatters in half, revealing pure white bone. Hyunsuk looks at himself in disbelief and declares that he won. Rachel asks if the hero is okay. The moment the buff disappears, Hyunsuk feels like his body is about to collapse and says that it really hurts. Rachel tells him to wait and says she can cast a healing spell. Her hands emit a dazzling light, and the boy's twisted wounds slowly begin to heal. After his wounds are healed, he immediately allocates all the attribute points he gained from leveling up. But the next second, a familiar voice comes from deep within the cave. Hyunsuk looks up in surprise and sees it as Kulkan. Kulkan notes that he is still alive too. Hyunsuk feels speechless, thinking about how the chef fled, and asks how he ended up there. Kulkan laughs happily and says he found the cave while escaping, adding that he thinks they are both very lucky. However, at this moment, Hyunsuk tells him that this is the Taurus nest, and that those are all Taurus eggs, explaining that the place is their hatchery. Kulkan stares at the eggs with burning eyes without responding, and remarks that these soft eggs are top-tier ingredients, noting that most people die without ever tasting them. Hyunsuk tells him they need to run now and cannot help but curse. Kulkan takes an egg and puts it in his mouth, stating that the Taurus queen chasing him has probably already come in. He explains that to defeat her, they would need at least a command regiment's worth of forces, and tells Hyunsuk to come enjoy this last supper. While the two are arguing, footsteps suddenly sound from outside, and it is the kitchen soldiers. Hyunsuk asks if this is really his last meal, and refuses to accept it because he does not even have a wife in this other world yet. He declares that his life cannot end like this. Meanwhile, in Commander Hermes' office, she summons Lodrin and tells him there is no need for such formal procedures. She asks how the task she gave him is going. Lodrin reports that as she ordered, he successfully captured the next saint. Hermes pats Lodrin's head and tells him she knew he could do it, remarking that in just about 3 weeks, Lodrin successfully captured the Holy Empire's elected saint. She tells him, well done. But at this moment, the room's door is suddenly pushed open. A messenger reports an urgent situation, stating the kitchen staff reported an accident while gathering ingredients. Hermes purses her lips and asks if that doesn't happen every day, and what is so surprising about it. The messenger explains that the scale of casualties this time is quite large, because they encountered the Taurus queen. He reports that most of the kitchen staff, including head chef Kulkan, are either dead or missing. Hermes strokes her chin thoughtfully and asks about Hyunsuk. The messenger reports that he is also missing. Listening to the conversation, Lodrin freezes in shock and repeats that Hyunsuk is missing too. Meanwhile, inside the cave, Kulkan and the kitchen staff are all completely absorbed in the world of eating eggs. Hyunsuk sighs deeply and then smashes a book hard against Kulkan. The intense pain immediately snaps the chef awake, and he asks what Hyunsuk is doing. Hyunsuk makes up an excuse on the spot, telling him that he seemed to be under some mysterious curse, so he used that method to wake him up. In reality, he simply does not want to see Kulkan so dejected. As for the book in his hand, it is the Beast Encyclopedia that Hyunsuk exchanged for 50 hero points in the shop. It contains information on nearly all demon beasts, including the Terras. It describes them as spider-type demon beasts and social creatures with highly developed leg muscles. It notes that to defeat a Taurus, one must target their relatively weak points, specifically the torso and head. The book also explains that Taurus bodily fluids are highly flammable, and their eggs contain a bomb-like flammable liquid. Furthermore, caves built with Taurus saliva have weak resistance to flames, so the text warns to be careful not to use fire magic inside. After reviewing these weaknesses, Hyunsuk closes the book and asks Kulkan if he can use fire magic. Kulkan turns his head and says he knows a little bit of the basics, like shooting fireballs, but he sighs and tells Hyunsuk to give it up. He explains that Taurus shells cannot be burned through by his level of flames. Hyunsuk rolls his eyes at him because his plan is not to burn the Taurus at all. He addresses everyone and tells them to listen up because he has an escape plan. Others mock him, calling him a goblin chef's sidekick and saying it is a futile struggle. They argue it is better to just stay there and keep eating eggs. Facing this situation, Hyunsuk does not give up and continues encouraging them. He promises that if they successfully escape, not only will there be Taurus eggs to eat, but he will also provide unlimited deluxe grilled meat meals. The thought of delicious grilled meat finally rekindles everyone's interest. Kulkan immediately calls out to Hyunsuk while drooling, asking what the plan is and saying they should start now. A few seconds later, Hyunsuk announces that what they need to do is just keep running toward the exit. He tells them that no matter what happens, they are not allowed to stop, and then commands them to move out. As soon as the words leave his mouth, Hyunsuk takes the lead and runs ahead with everyone following close behind. Unfortunately, they only run a short distance before encountering a large group of adult Terras. Hyunsuk tells Kulkan to get ready as he holds 2 eggs in his hands. He throws them forcefully at the wall beside them, and Kulkan simultaneously launches fire magic. The moment the egg fluid contacts the flames, a violent explosion occurs. The shock wave nearly destroys the entire cave. To protect the remaining eggs, the adult Taras have no choice but to abandon their pursuit of Hyunsuk to put out the fire first. Hyunsuk tells the group to run quickly while the monsters are distracted. Although everyone keeps running, the complex terrain makes it difficult to find the exit. Hyunsuk shouts that they only have 1 egg left and must find the exit before it is used up. Rachel suddenly spots light in the distance and points it out, declaring that the exit is over there. Dodging the relentless attacks of the adult Terras, Hyunsuk runs in that direction. As they get closer to the light, he says they are almost out. However, just as they are about to reach the exit, Hyunsuk stops in shock because the massive Taurus queen appears before them, single-handedly blocking the entire cave exit. He says they are finished now that the queen has returned. Although her expression is extremely enraged, the queen does not actively attack them. Hyunsuk guesses this might be related to the egg in his hand, as Taurus are creatures with extremely strong maternal instincts. Without hesitation, he tears off a large piece of fabric from his sleeve and tells Kulkan to ignite it. He raises both items high and warns that if the egg explodes, they will all die there. He adds that the cave will collapse and all her offspring will be buried with them. He shouts for her to move aside and let them out if she does not want this to happen. The Terrace Queen flies into a rage upon hearing this and wants to kill him immediately, but her instinct to protect her offspring stops her. She refuses to back down and lets out an ear-piercing shriek that echoes through the sky. With no other choice, Hyunsuk ignites the Taurus egg and hurls it violently into the cave. The egg explodes the moment it hits the wall, causing the entire cave to tremble non-stop. Hyunsuk wonders if it is going to collapse. Watching the massive rocks continuously falling from above, he realizes the cave is indeed about to collapse and tells everyone to run outside. Hyunsuk quickly dashes toward the exit, but shortly after running out, he stops in his tracks because he hears the sound of himself leveling up. Rachel looks confused and tries to pull him outside, but she cannot budge him at all. As the cave continues collapsing, level up notifications keep ringing out one after another. Hyunsuk is completely stunned and realizes that all the Taras being crushed to death are giving him their experience points. He wonders if it is because he was the one who collapsed the cave. Not daring to linger any longer, he rushes outside. Escaping past the Queen's blockade is a major challenge, but he feels he has no choice. Fortunately, at this moment, Kulkan pulls out a precious Taurus egg from his collection and looks at it reluctantly, saying he will use it to buy them a way out. But as soon as he finishes speaking, the Queen's attack comes rushing in. Hyunsuk slides right under the Queen and slips away, but just as he is about to escape, she spits out spider silk that wraps around his arm. He thinks this is bad and that he is going to die. However, at this moment, a deep crimson figure blocks his path. It is Lodrin, who asks if he is all right. Hyunsuk looks shocked and says he does not understand why Lodrin is there. Lodrin smirks and says he knew he was still alive, then announces that he is taking over. As he speaks, a terrifying power erupts from his body and directly shatters the Terrace Queen. This scene leaves Hyunsuk stunned, and he remarks that Lodrin is insanely powerful. The final result of the hunt was that 99 chefs died, including the head chef Kulkan. After the battle concludes, Hyunsuk returns to Popo's room. Rachel lets out a relieved sigh, expressing her gratitude for the bull-headed commander, noting that they would surely be dead without him. However, Hyunsuk quickly provides a reality check, telling her to enjoy the moment while it lasts because they are about to be done for, as his duel with Iskulkin is starting soon. Rachel disagrees, pointing out that he has already grown significantly. She reminds him that he gained a full 75 levels from the cave collapse. Now that Hyunsuk has reached level 200, he possesses 3,500 battle power, yet his opponent still has a full 6,000. Despite this, Hyunsuk has considered the situation and believes that victory in battle isn't just about battle power. He views his sparring match with Gorbakum as a perfect example of this. Rachel nods in agreement, stating that fighting isn't just about raw strength, but also involves magic. She tells him that, if he wants to beat an opponent of that level, he must learn how to use magic. Hyunsuk remarks that it is easy for her to say, as he doesn't know how to use it at all. Rachel changes her tone and suggests that he seemed to have some experience using magic back at the Taurus hatchery. Her words leave Hyunsuk puzzled, and he wonders if he actually used magic back then. Just as Hyunsuk is lost in thought, Lodrin pushes the door open, startling him. Hyunsuk asks what brings the commander to their humble quarters. Lodrin explains his purpose. He wants to take Hyunsuk to see Commander Hermes. Under Lodrin's guidance, the two arrive at the office. Hermes asks Lodrin what brings him there, noting that he doesn't usually visit on his own. Without any unnecessary chatter, Lodrin gets straight to the point and asks the commander to let him personally train Hyunsuk. He explains that while Iskulkin is a platoon leader, he has recently discovered that the orc's strength makes him more suitable to be a deputy battalion commander. Therefore, Lodrin feels the upcoming battle is extremely unfair and believes he can bring out Hyunsuk's maximum potential through training. Hyunsuk is completely stunned and wonders why Lodrin would do this, silently praying that Hermes won't agree. Unexpectedly, Hermes agrees without even thinking, and tells Lodrin to leave if he has nothing else to discuss, as she has matters to attend to. With no opportunity to object, Hyunsuk follows Lodrin, thanking the commander as they take their leave. After they depart, Hermes smirks. She has discovered that in just a few short days, Hyunsuk's strength has actually doubled. She finds it interesting that a human can grow so fast, but admits it troubles her slightly. She realizes that if Lodrin helps him, Iskulkin might actually lose, and she decides she cannot let this happen, forming a perfect plan in her mind. On the other side, Lodrin and Hyunsuk arrive at the training grounds. Hyunsuk is stunned to learn it is a private training ground, realizing Hermes must value Lodrin highly to give him such a place. Lodrin stops and stares intently at Hyunsuk, discovering that the boy possesses enormous magical power but still doesn't know how to use it. Being stared at makes Hyunsuk uneasy, as he has no idea what the commander wants. Lodrin decides it is best to teach him the basics first, but noting that the duel starts in just 4 days, he realizes time is short. Lodrin suddenly turns around and clenches his fist, deciding to push Hyunsuk to his limits to unlock his potential, noting that pain is part of growth. Before Hyunsuk can react, he is hit directly by Lodrin's heavy punch. He wonders if the man has lost his mind, questioning why someone who offered to train him is suddenly attacking. Lodrin clenches his fist again and closes in, warning Hyunsuk to focus everything on blocking or he will surely die. Hyunsuk raises his arms, but the tremendous force still sends him flying several meters. Lodrin speculates that while Hyunsuk's body strength isn't high, his reaction speed, perception, and mental strength are exceptional. He realizes that his previous failure to dodge Hyunsuk's kick wasn't an accident, and that the boy has extremely rich combat experience. Lodrin rushes toward him again, telling him that without mana, there is no way he can defeat Iskulkin. He tells Hyunsuk that rather than embarrassing himself in front of everyone, it would be better to die right there. Another powerful strike sends Hyunsuk flying. He realizes the commander isn't joking, and that one more hit like that will kill him. As Lodrin prepares another heavy punch, believing the boy can manage to use mana, Hyunsuk decides he cannot die yet because he hasn't married a wife in this world. He clenches his fist and charges at Lodrin. Suddenly, a bright blue mana begins swirling around his hand. Their attacks hit each other simultaneously, and the collision of mana creates a massive shockwave on the ground. Exhausted, Hyunsuk collapses. Lodrin walks over and points out that he just used mana. Even in his weakened condition, Hyunsuk gives a thumbs up and flatters the commander, saying it was because he taught him well. Lodrin grabs his hand, telling him to keep it up to have a chance at winning, and begins healing Hyunsuk's wounds. However, as he injects his magic into the boy's body, Hyunsuk's eyes widen in intense pain. He struggles and spits blood, finding it nearly impossible to breathe. Lodrin's eyes widen in fear, as he realizes he forgot Hyunsuk is human. He explains that dark magic is like deadly poison to humans, and apologizes repeatedly while picking Hyunsuk up. He realizes that in this situation, only the saint can save him. He explains that the powers in this world counter each other. Dark magic counters magic, magic counters holy power, and holy power counters dark magic. Magic belongs to humans, while dark magic belongs to demons. Holy power belongs to those who revere the divine, most notably, the Holy Gatlin Empire, where the voice of the gods can be heard. He notes that within that empire, the most exceptional person is selected to become the saint. At the Demon Army's 3rd Legion headquarters, a human woman is confined within a deep chamber. She possesses silver hair that falls to her waist, skin as white as snow, and silver eyes that match her hair. Her delicate features are stunning enough to take one's breath away, yet her eyes appear like those of a dead fish, completely devoid of life. Her name is Abelson Mariette, the next saint of the Gatlin Holy Empire. Following her kidnapping by Lodrin not long ago, she has been imprisoned in this place. She has not prayed to God in many days. Although she can hear the voice of God a requirement for her station, she has not sought him here, knowing that any such effort would be futile. As Mariette is lost in her thoughts, the door to the room suddenly opens to reveal the Red Nightmare, Lodrin. His breathing is heavy, indicating he rushed there urgently. Mariette is confused by his anxious expression, as the ruthless Lodrin usually shows no emotional fluctuations. Lodrin shouts urgently, pleading for her to save the human he has brought. Hyunsuk has fallen into unconsciousness and feels as though his head is about to split open. He slowly recalls his final moments, remembering being hit by Lodrin and falling to the ground. He feels a sense of unwillingness, thinking that he is truly dying while holding a man's hand. He believes that, no matter what, he should at least die holding the hand of a woman, even if it were Rachel. As these thoughts pass, Hyunsuk suddenly feels a warm power. He carefully opens his eyes and sees a figure he believes to be a goddess before him, noting her silver hair and eyes. She remains expressionless and silent. Hyunsuk becomes convinced that he is already dead and has returned to the place where he will be reborn. He declares that he will never forgive the goddess and wishes for Rachel to be sent to hell, calling her a demon wearing a goddess mask. He adds that if the goddess plans to make him a hero again, she will have to marry him first. The saint listens to this and shows a hint of sadness on her face, remarking on how pitiful it is, and wondering if he died forever alone in both of his lifetimes. Before Hyunsuk can continue listening to the saint's sweet voice, Lodrin suddenly bursts in. He notes that Hyunsuk is finally awake and embraces him with tears in his eyes. The tremendous pressure of the hug feels as though it might crush Hyunsuk's body, leading him to think he might die a second time. Lodrin quickly releases him. After being stunned for a few seconds, Hyunsuk holds his breath and looks around, seeing that the woman is still there. He realizes she might not be a goddess, but a real person, and panics over what he just said to her. Lodrin urgently asks the saint if the boy has fully recovered. Mariette shakes her head and states that it is not certain yet. She points out that the dark magic has not completely left his body, and says she does not know what the outcome will be. Lodrin is stunned, questioning how even her holy power could fail to eliminate it. Mariette speaks calmly, suggesting this might be temporary, and that the dark magic may disappear naturally over time, so they should observe the situation. Lodrin tightly embraces Hyunsuk and apologizes, promising to find a way to make it up to him through training. Hyunsuk quickly objects, telling the commander that he does not need to treat a subordinate in such a way. Before he can finish speaking, Lodrin carries him out of the room. Left behind, the saint looks puzzled, wondering why that demon is training a human and questioning who the boy is exactly. Upon leaving the room, Hyunsuk declines further training on the grounds that he needs to feed Popo. He internally thanks Popo for getting him out of the situation, noting that since the creature already ate a soldier who came to feed him, he shouldn't need to eat again today. While Hyunsuk is relieved to avoid training with Lodrin, he considers the dark magic remaining in his body and decides it won't be a major problem that kills him. He looks at Rachel and sees her sitting on the ground crying. She has heard everything Hyunsuk said to Mariette and is devastated that her hero wants her to go to hell. She weeps, saying that it is all her fault that he almost died and that she is indeed a goddess wearing a demon mask who deserves to suffer eternally. Hyunsuk realizes his words were too harsh and walks over to comfort her. He tells her not to be mad anymore and says he cannot do without her, calling her his buff dispenser. Rachel tells him to shut up and that she does not want to hear him talk. Time moves quickly to the next day. Hyunsuk arrives at Lodrin's private training ground as usual and gets beaten half to death. Consequently, Mariette naturally becomes his dedicated healer. Hyunsuk thanks her for healing him. Before the next day's duel, he sheepishly scratches his head and asks if she could pray that he won't die tomorrow. Additionally, he expresses that if it is possible, he would like to invite her to watch the duel. In the blink of an eye, the day of the duel arrives. Due to the intense training, Hyunsuk's body aches all over, but his mood is calm. In other words, he has become stronger. However, those present do not have high hopes for him because humans have a natural physical disadvantage compared to demons. Hermes asks Lodrin who he thinks will win. Lodrin says without hesitation that it will be Hyunsuk, noting that he has extraordinary talent and has undergone rigorous training. Hermes tells him she doesn't think highly of Hyunsuk and asks if he wants to make a bet. She says that if he wins, she will let him continue training the boy. But if he loses, she wants Lodrin to kill Hyunsuk with his own hands. She tells him that since he said he has faith in the boy, he must take responsibility for his words. Lodrin can only agree, and this agreement makes him nervous, as he doesn't want Hyunseok to die. Hyunseok lowers his head and tells himself he can win. Under Lodron's training, he has mastered a brand new skill called the Lodron combat technique. It is described as a dynamic martial art, composed of 10 different boxing styles, modified from the code and fighting style inherited by Lodron's clan, pursuing overwhelming power to subdue opponents. Although his proficiency is a bit low, Hyunseok's body strength has also improved considerably through training. He tells himself he must win because a silver-haired Saintess is watching. Just as Hyunseok is lost in thought, his opponent, the Beastman Iskolkin, makes his entrance. The demonic aura on him has surged dramatically in a short time, and it is clearly essentially the same as Hermes' aura. At this moment, Lodron sees the demonic aura on him and realizes something, causing him to stand up nervously. Hermes tells him with a smile that he can't back out now. Soon, the duel officially begins. Black, mist-like substances continuously overflow from Iskolkin's body with a roar. His voice, filled with magic, echoes across the land. At this moment, his battle power has reached a terrifying 10,573. Hyunseok is completely stunned by such an increase in just a few days, not knowing that this is actually Hermes' doing. He clenches his fist and says he won't back down, then quickly charges at Iskolkin. Just as he reaches his opponent, Iskolkin swings his massive iron club, smashing forward with terrifying momentum and creating a huge crack in the ground. Hyunseok twists his body to dodge the attack, and then launches an attack on Iskolkin from another direction. His fist slams heavily into the Beastman's face, but he knows this strike isn't enough to be fatal, so he launches another attack with his other hand. What he doesn't expect is that despite taking such a fierce attack, Iskolkin doesn't even take a single step back. The Beastman swings his iron club in a counterattack, nearly hitting Hyunseok's left arm. After dodging, Hyunseok looks up at Iskolkin and notes that apart from a tiny bit of blood, he doesn't seem to have sustained any serious damage. Before Hyunseok can hesitate further, Iskolkin charges forward at extreme speed, but Hyunseok finds these movements are predictable in his eyes. After receiving Lodron's training, he can easily see through his opponent's moves. He tells himself not to panic, and recalls that the art of combat is the fusion of fighting techniques and mana, which can greatly increase lethality. He remembers Lodron saying that he could use the fighting techniques he learned before, because he had no intent to kill his opponent, making such attacks meaningless. Hyunseok says he understands now and must strike to kill. He clenches his fist as a bright blue light glows on his hand, stating that no matter who stands before him, he will take them down. Hyunseok's Lodron combat technique attack infused with mana strikes precisely at Iskolkin's abdomen. The intense shockwave pierces straight through him, even making the earth tremble. After the smoke clears, the attacked Iskolkin slowly becomes visible, and a huge hole has been blasted through his heart by Hyunseok. The announcer declares that today's winner is the weak human Hyunseok. After hearing this, Hyunseok collapses weakly to the ground, as that strike used up almost all his mana. He tells himself he did it, and pierced straight through the heart. But just when everyone thinks the match is decided, spiderweb-like substances begin secreting from Iskolkin's wound, gradually filling the huge hole in his body. Hyunseok realizes this bizarre and insane ability doesn't look like something a creature like Iskolkin could possess, and notes he's not dead even with his heart destroyed. He realizes it must be Hermes' doing, and that she planted the dark magic immortality curse on Iskolkin. Lodron breaks into a sweat for Hyunseok, while Hermes looks smug. She notes that he mastered the martial art in such a short time, and his talent is unbelievable, but she says she already anticipated this. Within just a few seconds, Iskolkin is already back on his feet. Rachel looks confused and asks what is going on and if it is a curse. She says that if it is a curse, the situation won't last too long. Iskolkin charges forward while drooling. Hyunseok observes his opponent's movements and finds they're still the same as before, noting the attacks are too easy to dodge. But just as he's about to sidestep, his legs suddenly fail him at this critical moment. Unable to dodge in time, Hyunseok is slammed into the wall like a bullet by Iskolkin. Hyunseok is forced to grab the Beastman's arm and twist it with all his might, but even after hearing the sound of bones breaking, Iskolkin acts as if he feels no pain and throws Hyunseok violently away. The force is so great that Hyunseok briefly loses consciousness. He tells himself that he can feel large areas of broken bones throughout his body. From the audience seats, Mariette tells him to stand up and that he can do it. Hyunseok notes that she rarely speaks to him and says that she is right, and it's not over yet. Encouraged, Hyunseok forces his body up and stands shakily. He tells himself he absolutely cannot embarrass himself in front of the girl he invited, and notes he hasn't even been on a date with her yet. As he speaks, an enormous mana erupts from his body. He says that if his bones are broken, he'll cover them with mana like armor. With the mana's enhancement, Hyunseok moves again. He leaps high into the air, then concentrates all his mana into both hands and tells the opponent to die. Hyunseok's attack slams heavily onto Iskolkin's head, nearly crushing his skull. But even so, Iskolkin still doesn't die. An eerie black mist erupts from his body once again. Hyunseok looks at Iskolkin with infinitely calm eyes, and his mind contains only victory and the date. Hyunseok raises his hand and says this is his job, He calls the opponent a musclehead pig and tells him to come on. As Hyunsuk speaks, he slams another punch on Iskulkin's head. Hermes asks Lodrin doubtfully if he taught him that kind of mana control, but she receives a negative answer. This makes her instantly nervous, and she says they need to be careful, calling him a monster. This word coming from her carries weight equivalent to a legion commander. As for her, aside from the Demon King, no one can challenge her position. This duel is quickly declared over. When Hyunsuk regains consciousness, he is already back in Popo's quarters. He wonders how the duel ended, as he did not see the final result and only remembers beating down Iskulkin. Rachel gives him the answer, stating that he won and then the Saintess healed him. Upon getting this information, Hyunsuk quickly opens his hero system and discovers that after that battle, he directly gained 12 levels, and his attributes have also grown considerably. He notes that he even acquired a brand new skill called mana control. However, even the well-traveled goddess Rachel has never heard of this skill. Hyunsuk can't help but complain, telling her it is normal that she hasn't seen it. Rachel asks what he means, and claims it is because the skill is rare, not because she is ignorant. While the two are bickering, Hyunsuk discovers what appears to be a small note beside him. On the other side of the headquarters, the Saintess who healed him returns to her room and looks outside. She thinks to herself that the guy is too strange, noting that mastering the use of mana within 3 days and learning proficient fighting techniques would take other knights at least a month to accomplish. She concludes he has unfathomable potential. Mariette rubs her hands together and recalls praying to God a few days ago, wondering if this is heaven's response to her or perhaps just his own talent. She decides that doesn't matter anymore since he won the duel anyway, and she thinks that maybe he is the person she has been looking for. Mariette comes to her door and knocks. The guard asks what the Saintess wants, and she presses her lips together, asking for a favor because she wants to go for a walk. At this moment in Popo's room, Hyunsuk opens the note and discovers it is actually from the Saintess. She is asking him to walk with her in the back garden. Hyunsuk trembles with excitement all over and quickly arrives at the agreed location without further hesitation. He wonders if he should ask for her contact information first, or if they should exchange letters. Coming out this late makes Rachel very unhappy, and she tells him not to be stupid, claiming the Saintess is playing with him and suggesting they go back. But as soon as she finishes speaking, Hyunsuk nervously grabs her because he senses movement in the distance. Turning his head, he sees it as Mariette, but behind her are 2 Minotaur guards. This makes him quite unhappy, as he thought he was having a private date. Mariette explains they are her guards, and she cannot move around alone. After hearing this, Hyunsuk learns that the Saintess has been imprisoned by the demon army. She suggests they take a walk first. Under the gaze of the 2 Minotaurs, the boy is too nervous to speak. Mariette turns her head and asks if he is a hero. Hyunsuk is stunned for a moment, but still nods, asking how she knew. She explains that in their world, only demons or heroes have black hair, and adds that his performance in yesterday's duel was impressive, so she believes he is a hero. Hyunsuk is embarrassed by such praise and laughs awkwardly. He asks if he can also ask her something, specifically what she thinks of him as a person. Deep confusion appears on Mariette's face, representing a very rare emotional change for her as she wonders what this guy is talking about. Just as the atmosphere becomes extremely awkward, Lodrin's voice comes from the distance, breaking the tension. Lodrin says that he found him and informs Hyunsuk that the Legion commander wants to see him. This is a bolt from the blue for Hyunsuk, and the date he worked so hard to arrange is hastily declared over. He is brought by Lodrin to Hermes' office. Hermes sits cross-legged on the desk looking at him and tells him, "Well done." She says she watched the duel very clearly and notes his recent achievements are quite impressive. Hermes flicks her finger and asks if he remembers the proposal she made to him. Hyunsuk quickly nods and says he remembers her saying he should duel opponents she designates in exchange for her protection. Hermes says that is right, and continues by reminding him he said he should become a demon officer and work there. She nods with satisfaction but then tells him that was just an excuse because she thought he wouldn't live long. Now, her thinking has changed. She points at Lodrin and mentions he said the boy would become an excellent demon officer, so this time she thinks they should try something different instead of dueling. Hermes gets down from the desk and slowly approaches, explaining that their unit has an independent cooking company. She notes the cooking company suffered heavy casualties, so the executives can't have proper meals. She tells him that starting today, he will become the commander of this unit and gives him the authority to recruit cooking soldiers as he sees fit. She asks if he can do it, and Hyunsuk knows he has no choice, telling her to leave it to him. Rachel teases him, congratulating him on his promotion and noting he is a company commander now. She asks if he is happy that a human hero actually became an officer of demon soldiers. Hyunsuk doesn't coddle her and says the feeling is amazing. The two bicker as they arrive at the Legion kitchen, but the moment Hyunsuk pushes open the door, he hears greedy chewing sounds coming from inside. Looking down, he sees a cooking soldier greedily eating something. The soldier recognizes him and calls him that barbecue slave. Hyunseok immediately loses his cool upon hearing this term and moves his numb foot. He tells the soldier he is wrong and that starting today, He is the head chef supervisor. With that, Hyunsuk viciously kicks him in the face. After venting his anger, Hyunsuk gathers all the soldiers in the kitchen. He sees that the people there generally have battle power around 2,000, with the strongest at 3,500. Looking at them, Hyunsuk immediately has a big question in his mind, wondering why there are so few kitchen soldiers when there should be 300 to 500. Now there aren't even 30. But he also knows he cannot disobey Hermes' orders or he will die on the spot. So he feigns composure. He asks if anyone knows who he is. One soldier raises his hand and says he is a tasty human. As soon as he finishes speaking, Hyunsuk viciously kicks him into the wall, confirming that he is indeed a tasty human. Hyunsuk pulls out the appointment letter Hermes gave him and tells them the commander appointed him as the head supervisor of the kitchen unit. So from now on, they must treat him like royalty. He also asks if anyone can tell him why there are so few people there now. A soldier raises his hand and explains they all went hunting and were killed by magical beasts. Hearing this, Hyunsuk remains quite calm because he knows the strongest chef, Kulkan, was already killed by the Terrace Queen, so it is normal that these remaining misfits can't beat wild monsters. He asks who the strongest among them is now, and everyone points without hesitation at Gurumu, the person Hyunsuk beat up earlier. Because his battle power is outstanding, Hyunsuk appoints him as deputy kitchen supervisor. He then dismisses them. Hyunsuk sits alone in the corner, thinking the kitchen needs at least 200 people, and concluding there is only one way to do it. The next day at dawn, Hyunsuk leaves his quarters with Popo. He already has a good method in mind for recruiting soldiers, which involves using Popo to intimidate his opponents. He plans to give them a choice, either join the kitchen department or get eaten by Popo. To start things off, Hyunsuk kicks a soldier straight in the face. Seeing a power level of only 1,931, he decides this one is manageable and asks the soldier if he wants to join the kitchen department, calling him a little mole. The soldier looks around and points at himself in confusion, but Hyunsuk confirms he is talking to him and delivers another brutal kick. The mole guy sits down looking aggrieved, asking why he is being hit without even being heard. Hyunsuk sighs and tells him he is the first recruit of the day, explaining that this means he will have a higher status than those who join later and can abuse his power or find someone to take the blame for him. The mole guy looks confused by the idea of taking the blame, as he cannot think that far ahead with his limited intelligence. Hyunsuk tells him to go bring all his friends, promising that for every 10 people who join, he will give the mole guy one subordinate. Hyunsuk's plan seems perfect, and he believes he might soon build up a division's worth of troops. However, he does not expect that the mole creature is actually a soldier from the independent battalion. This news quickly reaches the battalion commander, the demon Doris. A soldier informs Doris that they have a problem, and the battalion is running out of soldiers. Doris elegantly picks up a handkerchief and asks if they deserted or left en masse, as he doesn't believe he treated them badly enough to make them flee. The soldier clarifies that they didn't flee, but were recruited as cooks. Doris breathes a sigh of relief, leaning back in his chair and saying he will let it slide since recruiting kitchen soldiers is normal, though he tells the messenger to have them be more careful next time. The soldier shouts with a tearful voice that they need to take it seriously because Hyunsuk has already taken 200 of their soldiers. Upon hearing this number, the calm Doris instantly breaks down. Meanwhile, Hyunsuk continues his recruitment. He notes they now have over 200 cooks and wonders if they should end the recruitment. The moment he mentions this, he senses something is wrong. Glancing sideways, he discovers something terrifying. He wonders why, after telling them to bring a comrade, one guy brought a pig. He uses his power gauge to check and freezes in shock, realizing they are done for. The power level is immeasurable, exceeding 50,000. Hyunsuk tries to quietly wrap up and run, but Doris calls out to him. Hyunsuk can only turn back and force a calm smile, asking what brings the commander there. Doris reveals he is the commander of the 3rd Legion's independent battalion and begins interrogating him, asking if Hyunsuk knows what he is thinking. He points at the recruited soldiers and asks why Hyunsuk took half of his battalion. Hyunsuk is stunned, as he never expected the recruits all came from the same place. He asks to explain, internally cursing the fact that things went so smoothly. A few minutes later, Doris brings Hyunsuk to the office. When Hyunsuk says he didn't do this intentionally, Doris asks if he is telling the truth. Hyunsuk quickly nods and starts flattering him, saying he selected only the most valiant-looking soldiers who happen to all be from Doris's battalion. Doris beams internally, thinking that since Commander Hermes likes this guy, he shouldn't make a big fuss. He puts on a smile and says they can only comply since that is Hyunsuk's selection method. Hyunsuk is overjoyed, but suspects things won't be that simple. Sure enough, Doris sets a condition. Hyunsuk must take one more soldier from the battalion, and they will be good. Hyunsuk suspects Doris wants to dump a useless fool on him, but seeing Doris's murderous intent begin to show, he quickly says he is just happy and runs out of the office. He tells Doris to just introduce the soldier to him later. Shortly after Hyunsuk returns to his office, the door opens, and a towering giant appears. His name is Azulu, a hybrid of an ogre and a half-orc. Hyunsuk sees his power level is immeasurable, and thinks that while the guy looks stupid, he is incredibly strong and needs to be used well. The next day, Hyunsuk gathers the kitchen soldiers and reintroduces himself as Popo's keeper and head chef. He announces a plan to reorganize the department, preparing a roster and having them stand according to their positions. He categorizes them by power level, assigning the weaker ones to kitchen duty and taking the stronger ones hunting. A few minutes later, they form two lines, the cooking squad on the right and the combat squad on the left. When Hyunsuk asks if there are any objections, an extremely short beastman raises his arm, saying he wants to hunt and have fresh meat too. Hyunsuk gives an awkward laugh and beckons him over, then kicks the skinny soldier hard, sending him flying. He tells the soldier he needs to pass his test first, which he obviously didn't. The hero system then sends a notification that his charisma and commandability have increased due to his leadership in reorganizing the troops. Hyunsuk's eyes widen at the unexpected reward. He asks if anyone else has objections while raising his fist, then orders the combat squad to move out to hunt. Under his lead, they reach the northern forest, but there isn't a single beast there. Rachel suggests it is because Popo or Azalou are too strong and are scaring away enemies. Hyunsuk agrees, but realizes he can't leave his top forces behind. Rachel claps her hands and suggests using them as bait with a sly smile. Hyunsuk thinks she is a devil, but proceeds to select 5 soldiers as bait based on lottery numbers he bought on Earth. With tears in his eyes, Hyunsuk orders Azalou to throw out the soldiers whose numbers are called, shouting for him to launch them like missiles. He reasons that using the weak ones as bait should lure prey over. He has his men light torches insincerely so the bait soldiers can see the smoke to find their way back. Rachel expresses doubt that they will come back alive, but Hyunsuk smirks wickedly, saying at least one of the 6 will return, including Azalou. The onlookers think Hyunsuk has gone mad and want to flee, but they find Popo waiting behind them. Hyunsuk is calm inside, knowing they will either obey or end up in Popo's belly. The soldiers choose the first option, and after waiting, the bait soldiers bring back several beasts. Hyunsuk tells them to wait for the soldiers to handle them so he can take the final blow. However, before he can finish speaking, Azalou roars and charges, swinging his weapon and launching a fierce attack. Hyunsuk is shocked by the power, as Azalou completely shatters the massive beast with one strike. Popo does the same, instantly killing the others. Hyunsuk realizes he can't work this way because he missed the final blows and the meat is completely shattered. He decides that when they come tomorrow, he is absolutely not bringing those 2 again. Shortly after returning to his quarters, Hyunsuk heads to the kitchen. After building up his emotions, he angrily kicks the door open and asks if they are slacking off again and if the food is ready. The deputy head chef quickly runs over and explains that they are working on it, but notes that today's meat is a bit of a problem. Hyunsuk's expression darkens as he tells the chef that a craftsman doesn't complain about his tools. The deputy chef agrees and says he will get right on it. Though he says this, Hyunsuk knows well that with the skill level of these cooks, even passing dogs would cover their noses. However, Hyunsuk has already thought of a solution. He decides that regular soldiers will eat what the cooks make, while only battalion commanders and those of higher rank are qualified to eat his own cooking. He believes this will not only perfectly solve the production shortage, but also gain him favor with high-ranking officers. After finishing the roast, Hyunsuk immediately seeks out Mariette because she helped him greatly during his duel. He wants to express his gratitude with the tender roast. Mariette tells him she only needs a little. She spears a piece of the roast, and rich meaty aromas waft up, smelling much better than she expected. After putting it in her mouth and chewing, the taste completely astonishes her. She finds it to be the most delicious food she has eaten in the Demon Lord's Black Castle. Soon, Mariette finishes the roast completely. Afterward, Hyunsuk picks up the plate to leave, but just then, Mariette speaks. She asks Hyunsuk if he has anything he wants to do after leaving the Demon Lord's castle. Hyunsuk blurts out that he wants to get married and have children, but Mariette freezes upon hearing this. She admits she originally thought a hero would have loftier ambitions. Hyunsuk says he understands and prepares to go, but then shyly hooks his finger and tells her it doesn't have to be the village chief's daughter. He then asks Mariette the same question. After thinking for a long time, she calmly says that she doesn't want to do anything. Meanwhile, in the Gatlin Empire, a subordinate comes to report in a panic that they have discovered Saintess Mariette's whereabouts and that she is imprisoned in the Black Castle. Fearing the voracious eater Hermes, the Empire dares not rashly send troops. It is noted that in human history, the Black Castle has been conquered only 3 times, and each time was because Hermes was absent. After pondering for a moment, the Pope comes up with a solution to summon their heroes and send them as a secret rescue team. The next day, Hyunsuk assembles his soldiers early for hunting. However, Mariette's words about not wanting to do anything linger in his mind, and he wonders why she would think that way. With this question, Hyunsuk begins today's hunt. After going deeper into the forest, he raises his hand to signal the team to stop, and orders all 10 squad leaders to step forward. The squad leaders nervously glance at Hyunsuk's expression, wondering what he is planning today. They feel fortunate that Azalou isn't there, so they assume he probably won't do the crazy thing of throwing soldiers into the forest. But today, Hyunsuk is surprisingly generous, and actually pulls out several large pieces of seasoned roast from his backpack. He tells everyone to take a bite and asks why they are just standing there, telling them to eat. He warns them that if they don't, they will go feed Popo. The squad leaders tearfully stuff the meat in their mouths, and these burly men devour the fist-sized chunks of meat in less than a minute. They ask the head chef what it is, and remark on how delicious it is. Their eyes begin to moisten with tears dripping down, and they say they really chose right by joining the kitchen troops. They call the head chef a great person, and vow to work hard from now on, asking for another piece. Hyunsuk raises his index finger and waves it gently, telling them the gourmet experience is over and that the game now begins. He orders them to go capture beasts alive, and says the squad that captures the most will get the chance to dine with him today. He asks if they are still standing there, and tells them to run. As Hyunsuk's words fall, a life-or-death game for meat begins. To taste that aromatic roast again, the squad leaders all charge ahead. Hyunsuk observes that all creatures are dominated by their desires. During today's hunt, Hyunsuk directly raises his level to 224. The squad leaders ask which squad won today, and Hyunsuk turns around to announce the Wild Wolf squad as the hunt's champions. He tells them they will get the chance to eat roast and says the losers will just have to have better luck next time. Meanwhile, inside the Black Castle, a large number of demon soldiers lie in pools of blood, having all died at the hands of the same person. In a matter of moments, that individual reaches the room where Saintis Mariette is imprisoned and removes his hood. He identifies himself as the rescue team sent by the Pope, Oseld Geffen, a hero hidden in the shadows of the Holy Empire, and tells her he has come to rescue her. Unexpectedly, after he explains his purpose, Mariette refuses and demands that he leave. Geffen scratches his head with a smile, stating that this is his mission and he must complete it. Mariette continues to refuse, mentioning the voracious eater Hermes. She warns him that if he does not leave, she will use holy power to notify her. Before she can finish, Geffen lands a heavy punch on Mariette's abdomen and tells her to sleep well, promising that when she opens her eyes again, she will be in the Empire. As Mariette is held tightly, a suffocating dizziness emerges. She wonders how he can possess holy power, and thinks to herself that she absolutely cannot return to that place. Just as Mariette is about to pass out, a sandbag-sized fist smashes hard into Geffen's face. Hyunsuk appears and tells him to get his filthy hands off her. This punch uses nearly all of his strength, but Geffen remains completely unmoved. Geffen sneers, noting that a guy radiating dark magic is interesting and observing that he looks more human on the outside. He tells Hyunsuk that his moves are nice, but his magic power is severely lacking. Before he can finish, Hyunsuk attacks again with a whirlwind carrying powerful magic. These movements far exceed Geffen's expectations, making him interested in bringing Hyunsuk back to the Empire as well. Geffen blocks the attack and counterstrikes. The terrifying force causes blood to gush from Hyunsuk's mouth, and he loses consciousness on the spot. Geffen wonders if he died, thinking perhaps his instant rage caused his strength to go out of control. Rachel, hiding nearby, is instantly shocked to see her hero taken down with one hit and considers going to get Popo. After confirming Hyunsuk is not dead, Geffen pulls a high-level holy magic scroll from his pocket, prepared just in case. However, an extremely imposing female voice suddenly sounds from behind, asking what is happening and if he needs help. It is Hermes. Geffen suppresses his shock and turns quickly, realizing he did not sense her presence at all. Hermes jokes with a smile that the title Voracious Eater isn't very polite, and suggests Gourmet would be more appropriate. In complete contrast to Hermes' attitude, cold sweat pours down Geffen's face. He wonders if he can win, remembering that the Pope had repeatedly warned him to absolutely avoid fighting her. While he had previously scoffed at this, facing her now helps him understand why the Pope was so insistent. He cannot sense any demonic energy even at close range, which he realizes is a sign that the power gap between them is enormous. Despite having defeated stronger opponents before, Geffen wants to challenge himself again. Between heartbeats, Hermes' terrifying magic power crashes down on Geffen like a raging storm. He tells himself not to panic, and to focus on finding the right moment to escape with the Saintess. While he is thinking, his brain suddenly feels dizzy and he realizes his arm has been severed. He freezes instantly, wondering when that happened. Hermes opens her gaping maw and tells him to make this fun for her. Geffen realizes he has completely lost, and that even his own survival is uncertain. After confirming the mission's failure, he bites down and crushes the scroll in his mouth. A bright light flashes as the holy magic activates. Such pure power would reduce ordinary demons to ash, but Hermes merely furrows her brow and asks if he is trying to escape, and if he won't play a bit longer. In the blink of an eye, Geffen vanishes without a trace. Hermes notes that his escape skills are quite good, though she actually deliberately let him go. If she had truly wanted to kill him, she could have done so thousands of times within a minute. Demons have inhabited the continent for over 500 years, with countless numbers of them coming and going in cycles. However, there are only two exceptions: the Demon Lord and Hermes. They stand unwavering like towering mountains. While the demon lord almost never appears before others, the voracious eater Hermes is entirely different. Time flies, and soon it is the next day. Hyunsuk undergoes Lodrin's training once again. Lodrin points out Hyunsuk's flaws, stating that his attack methods and way of casting magic remain too simple and direct. He explains that because Hyunsuk's imagination is limited, his movements appear monotonous and rigid. However, Lodrin shifts his tone, adding that no matter how strong a person is, there is always someone stronger. Therefore, under Lodrin's instruction, using any tactics is justified for victory. Today's training officially concludes, and once he leaves, Hyunsuk immediately collapses on the ground. He calls out for someone to save him, saying he is dying. Under the goddess Rachel's healing, Hyunsuk's condition begins to improve. Rachel complains, asking if she is now just a healing potion to him. Hyunsuk's thoughts have drifted far away, and he tells her he has nothing to say to her. He recalls Saintess Mariette saying that he needs to become stronger, and that only with sufficient power can he uphold his beliefs. Hyunsuk's untimely words instantly stir Rachel's jealousy, and she asks if he is still thinking about that woman, reminding him that he nearly lost his life for her. While they bicker, Rachel voices her confusion, wondering why a blonde assassin who can clearly use holy power would attack a saintess from his own side. Hyunsuk nods in agreement, noting that as the next saintess, she should be extremely valuable. Rachel insists they cannot discuss her anymore, and when Hyunsuk asks why, she says it is because he likes her. Hyunsuk covers his ears and tells her to stop being jealous. Several dozen minutes later, Hyunsuk lies in his quarters crying. He says he wants his life to end, and that he doesn't want to be human in his next life. His behavior leaves Popo completely confused. 10 minutes ago, when Hyunsuk was summoned to Hermes' office, Hermes had told Hyunsuk that she had a serious problem. She was bored. Her words startled Hyunsuk, who wondered what she wanted now. Hermes stated she wanted to see something interesting, and gave him 1 month to go defeat a battalion commander. Seeing Hyunsuk's troubled expression, Hermes extended her finger, indicating that if he felt he couldn't do it, she could help him the same way she helped Iskulkin. Hyunsuk replied that it was not at all necessary, and promised to perfectly execute her request. After explaining everything to Popo, Rachel tells the creature to say goodbye to him, because he won't see Hyunsuk for long. She flies to Hyunsuk's side, and tells him to accept his fate, questioning how he expects to defeat a battalion commander with a power level of 9,000. Hyunsuk, lying back on the table, says he is already miserable, and doesn't mind dragging someone down with him. He notes that those who become battalion commanders generally have power levels exceeding 40,000. Looking at Popo, whose power level has reached immeasurable heights, Hyunsuk sighs and wishes Popo could fight in his place. He realizes that while this battle is expected to be a duel, Hermes never explicitly said it had to be one. After triple-checking with Rachel, Hyunsuk confirms there is no requirement for a duel. He realizes this means he can use any method to win, such as an ambush, ganging up, or bringing Popo. His plan is to lure the target out, then have Popo lead an ambush and gang up on him. Rachel shakes her head, asking if she should call him clever or cowardly. However, they face the tricky problem of how to lure a battalion commander out. For Hyunsuk, this is not a problem. He selects some ribs, adds honey to draw out the blood, slices mushrooms, and adds seasonings and garlic, using water-spitting fish as a garnish. He simmers the ingredients on low heat for 2 hours, but then it burns. He salvages the unburned parts and sprinkles scallions on top, declaring that no battalion commander can resist this delicacy. In the camp on the other side, the peace-loving battalion commander Doris is leisurely enjoying his food. Having offloaded the troublemaker Azulu, he has finally achieved true peace. Just then, a subordinate reports that head chef Hyunsuk requests an audience. Doris waves him off, thinking it is impossible to return Azulu. However, the soldier says Hyunsuk is there to express gratitude and wants to personally cook for him. Hearing this, Doris's eyes widen, as rumors say Hyunsuk's roast can conquer even Hermes' taste buds. He quickly orders Hyunsuk to enter. Shortly after the soldier withdraws, Hyunsuk walks in carrying a large plate and holding a red rose in his mouth for effect. He greets Doris, which makes the commander's face flush and his heart pound like a wild deer. Doris quickly realizes something is off and forces himself to calm down. Hyunsuk explains he is there to express thanks for Doris's care a month ago, which allowed him to become head chef. Hyunsuk places the plate before Doris, who pays no attention to his words as his gaze is locked on the dish. Doris unceremoniously grabs a large rib, unable to resist the aroma. He is so curious about the taste that he stuffs the meat in his mouth and begins savoring it, making unpleasant sounds. A flash of murderous intent crosses Hyunsuk's face, but it vanishes instantly. Doris doesn't notice and says the meat tastes really good, appearing ashamed of his earlier behavior. Hyunsuk forces a kind smile and takes his leave. The instant he leaves the room, Hyunsuk vomits, describing the scene he witnessed as utterly disgusting and vowing to slaughter the pig. His original plan was to deliver meals to Doris for a week, to make him a meat slave, and then finish him off in the forest. However, today, Doris shows a troubled expression and stops eating. He reveals that tomorrow he will face a position defense battle and might lose his rank. Doris looks at his bloated figure with a self-mocking smile and devours the meat in large gulps. Hyunsuk falls into deep despair, realizing that if this pig gets killed in a duel, a week of his efforts will be wasted. He feels that the stupid pig cannot possibly win and wants to grab him by the collar. Just then, Doris asks Hyunsuk to come watch the fight, calling him his lucky charm. Hyunsuk nods and silently prays that the challenger will be even worse than Doris. The next day, Hyunsuk finishes his daily work and arrives at the dueling arena. Rachel suggests looking on the bright side, wondering if the pig might suddenly awaken and become a super pig. However, Hyunsuk doesn't even believe his own self-consoling nonsense, noting that it is impossible for a super pig to weigh over 800 pounds. Inside the arena, Doris takes a full half hour just to climb the stairs to the platform. Upon seeing Hyunsuk in the stands, Doris feels that everything he has done is meaningful and calls out to his lucky charm, noting that he finally came. His opponent is a burly, robust demon with a deer head, making it clear that Hyunsuk's prayers were disastrous. Soon, at the referee's command, the duel begins. The deer-headed demon attacks first with extreme speed, but he stops the instant he hits Doris. Unexpectedly, Doris, who seemed to have trouble even walking, possesses enough strength to firmly control his opponent. Next, he positions himself and suddenly exerts force. The violent attack instantly shatters the entire dueling arena, and even Hyunsuk, far away in the stands, is almost caught by the shockwave of the attack. Hyunsuk is certain that the battle is over, and that the victor is the demon Doris. After the duel ends, Hyunsuk returns to his quarters. Having witnessed Doris's true power, he is certain that Popo alone cannot defeat him. Therefore, Hyunsuk modifies his plan. He decides he needs to find stronger creatures deep in the hunting forest to jointly strike Doris, such as the Terrace Queen. Thanks to the hard work of the cooking soldiers, Hyunsuk is able to understand the situation in the area, and his face is full of pride. Rachel asks if he is planning something, and he confirms it, noting the saying that the enemy of his enemy is his friend. On the third day in the back mountain forest, Rachel covers her mouth as if she is about to vomit at any moment. After memorizing the Beast Encyclopedia for 3 days straight, the ocean of knowledge has filled her limited brain capacity. She tells him they should get going quickly before she throws up. Hyunsuk nods and pulls out a map, noting the first target is 1 kilometer ahead. The cooking soldiers marked it as a monster called Simibufi. Rachel quickly chimes in, explaining that in the ancient language, it means forest worm, and adds that there are 2 other monsters with similar appearances, Mossbeat and Estunibia. However, this option is immediately rejected because Rachel thinks the creature's attack power is not strong, and it won't actively attack people. She asks if this goddess isn't talented, and tells him to call her the beast expert. Hyunsuk is stunned and agrees, saying she is not only talented but also very wise. That said, he notes that empty-headed guys do learn fast. Soon enough, Hyunsuk gathers all the kitchen soldiers together. He studies the map carefully, and one specific location catches his eye because it is marked as being covered in steel-like scales and having a dragon-shaped appearance. Rachel notes that there are many types of dragons, and that these descriptions alone are not enough to determine exactly which kind it is. In Hyunsuk's understanding, dragons should be the beasts with the strongest attack power, so he decides he must check the area out for himself. Upon arriving at the dragon's territory, Hyunsuk issues the day's mission to the kitchen soldiers. He tells them they are cleaning the place out, and that there is no need to catch the creatures alive. He gives them permission to hunt on site and eat on site. This decision excites the kitchen soldiers like never before, and they shout in celebration. They remark that the head chef has finally come to his senses and cheer because they can finally eat fresh meat until they are stuffed. Soon, they slaughter a large number of beasts in the area. Contrary to the excitement of the kitchen soldiers, Hyunsuk appears restless at this moment. He wonders why the Beast Lord has not shown up yet, reasoning that logically, with so many of the small ones dead, the big one should have appeared by now. To avoid wasting an entire day, Hyunsuk decides to take things even further. He orders the kitchen soldiers to start fires and roast all of the beasts they killed right there on the spot. Sure enough, shortly after the barbecue begins, the ground suddenly starts trembling. At the same time, Hyunsuk's eyes light up. He asks himself if it is finally coming. Though he does not know exactly what it is, he senses something massive approaching. Before long, a beast crashes through the trees and appears with blood-red eyes. It stands at a terrifying 5 meters tall, with a dragon-like head, and its entire body is covered in black scales. Hyunsuk immediately puts on his power gauge and sees that the power is immeasurable. He decides that the power level qualifies perfectly. Rachel tells him that this is a beast called a Nidrake, and she notes that its combat power rivals that of a battalion commander. As the cooking soldiers begin to scatter in panic at the sight of a giant dragon, Hyunsuk smirks. He tells himself they can now defeat Doris, and announces to the group that he will take the lead. Meanwhile, Laudren is summoned to Hermes' office. Hermes asks what Hyunsuk has been up to lately. Laudren replies that he is doing the same as always, and is carrying out his duties as the head chef. Hermes finds this unusual, noting that Hyunsuk has been behaving too peacefully lately. She asks Laudren if he taught the boy some incredible technique again, but Laudren says they are just doing routine training. Hermes then asks what the odds are of Hyunsuk defeating a battalion commander, and Laudren answers that they are 0. Though he notes Hyunsuk has been peaceful, Laudren mentions he has also noticed something strange, having heard that the boy has been getting quite close to Doris recently. Hermes looks puzzled and refers to Doris as a pig, wondering why someone who claims he can defeat a battalion commander is getting so close to one. She remarks on how interesting it is and says they should wait and see. Over the following days, Hyunsuk repeatedly prepares delicious dishes for Doris. Doris remarks that the food is absolutely delicious, and thanks him for providing the barbecue again. After devouring 50 plates of barbecue, Doris lets out a little burp. At that moment, Hyunsuk deliberately sighs with difficulty. This strange behavior immediately catches Doris's attention, and he asks what is wrong, or if something has happened. Hyunsuk's eyes glisten with tears as he says it is nothing, but then adds that something happened in the kitchen department and suggests this might be the last time he can bring a meal. The severity of the situation makes Doris jump to his feet. He demands to know what happened. With a downcast face, Hyunsuk waves his hands and explains that Commander Hermes said she wants to taste a special beast meat, but claims this beast is too powerful. He tells Doris that even after days of fighting, they still could not capture it. This statement shocks Doris, who says he cannot fathom what beast could be that powerful. Hyunsuk calls it a marble pattern beast, and Doris asks what that is, noting he has never heard of it. It is noted that it is perfectly normal Doris hasn't heard of it, because Hyunsuk just made the name up on the spot. Hyunsuk claims this concerns life and death, and that he wouldn't lie about it. Seeing the predicament, Doris generously offers to lend him 200 soldiers. However, Hyunsuk refuses the kind gesture. He states his belief that the soldiers are too weak, and says that no matter how many are sent, they would just be throwing their lives away. He suggests that if their great lord Doris were to personally step in, perhaps the trouble would be resolved. He adds that if Doris does this, he will make sure Commander Hermes knows of his contribution. Doris gets excited instantly, just imagining that after his success, the commander might cup his handsome face and praise him. He asks if it will really be like that. Seeing Doris waver, Hyunsuk quickly repeats that he will definitely inform the commander, which finally gets Doris to agree. Doris says he will help because they are friends after all. Hyunsuk asks if he really agreed, and a sly smile crosses his face as he lowers it. He thanks the Lord for his help. Rising at dawn the next day, Hyunsuk leads a large force to the forest. Today is the day of the decisive battle, codenamed Pig Hunt Operation. Consequently, he specially brings along the strongest fighters among the cooking soldiers, Popo and Azolu. Though there is still time before Hermes' deadline, they decide to act early. Hyunsuk heads toward Doris's troops, and soon both sides meet up, then proceed together toward the forest. Not only does Doris come, but he also brings all the soldiers from his battalion, showing how seriously he takes this matter. However, this is not good news for Hyunsuk. He realizes there are over 500 soldiers, which is way too many. He can only console himself by hoping that Nidrake is no coward either. After advancing into the forest depths for an unknown amount of time, the earth suddenly begins shaking violently. Hyunsuk gulps nervously and tells himself that the target is coming. Doris stretches and jumps down from the carriage, remarking that it is time to stretch his muscles. At the same time, Nidrake crashes through the forest trees and reveals itself, its roar echoing across the entire land. Nidrake's strange cry makes Doris frown. He remarks that while that is the beast called the marble pattern beast, he feels like he has seen it somewhere before. Doris seems lost in thought, appearing to have encountered a Nidrake somewhere in the past. Hyunsuk quickly interrupts his thoughts by asking if all beasts don't look pretty much the same. Fortunately, Doris is easily convinced by Hyunsuk and laughs, saying he supposed so. Doris then declares he will handle this guy and reminds Hyunsuk that he must report his contribution to the commander. With that, Doris charges forward alone. Hyunsuk's lips curl slightly upward as he promises he will personally report everything in detail to the commander. Soon, Doris and Nidrake engage in battle. Each time Doris clashes with the beast, earth-shattering booms erupt, and the ground cracks while rocks shatter. Rachel whispers from within Hyunsuk's arms, asking when they will make their move because at this rate, the pig will really take down Nidrake. However, Hyunsuk's eyes widen in surprise. He never expected Doris would make the decision to sacrifice his battalion soldiers to absorb Nidrake's attacks while keeping himself virtually unscathed. Just as the battle reaches its peak, a soldier suddenly rushes over in a frantic panic, shouting loudly that another beast is attacking. This completely disrupts Hyunsuk's plan. He wonders if this isn't Nidrake's territory, and recalls that according to natural law, beasts generally don't invade each other's domains. Before long, the ground splits open, and a giant worm-like beast bursts forth. Rachel recognizes the beast instantly as Simabufi and shouts, asking why that thing suddenly appeared. Hyunsuk roars in frustration. The appearing beast is not the last one, as beasts dominating various parts of the forest keep showing up one after another. This is completely beyond the plan. Knowing he's outmatched, Doris immediately issues a retreat order to the soldiers. Meanwhile, Rachel grows tense and asks what they should do, noting they can't let Doris leave. Hyunsuk knows all too well that if Doris leaves, he will be the one who dies. He takes desperate deep breaths to steady his emotions, then slowly utters the words, Laudrin combat technique, first form. Doris looks completely confused and asks what he is talking about. But in less than 1 second, Hyunsuk's heavy punch already slams into Doris's abdomen. Hyunsuk suddenly raises his voice, telling everyone to cancel that order and that they absolutely cannot retreat. He tells them to listen up, fight bravely, and that they have no way back, stating that only those who survive are qualified to attend the victory feast. His booming voice drowns out the chaotic forest. Meanwhile, the struck Doris falls into thought. He wonders when demons are most enraged, questioning if it is when they are beaten black and blue, or defeated in a command succession battle, but concludes it is neither. He decides it is when they are betrayed by insect-like humans, raging to the point of nearly losing his sanity because he showed Hyunsuk kindness, yet the human dares betray him. Crimson light bursts from Doris's eyes with only the thought of killing Hyunsuk. Doris makes up his mind and unleashes his ultimate hidden technique, Demon Bloodline Second Stage, Bloom. This is a skill that trades burning one's life force for explosive power. Hyunsuk is completely stunned, and even Rachel urges him to flee immediately. Doris's attack is indiscriminate and lethal. His battle aura spreads outward with himself as the center, and the beast Simibufi near Doris dies instantly. Fortunately, Hyunsuk is far enough away so his injuries aren't too severe, but Doris's rage doesn't diminish. He vows to tear Hyunsuk to shreds. At this critical moment, Hyunsuk remembers his 2 trump cards, Popo and Azolu, and asks where they are. Rachel looks worried and says they seem to have been dragged into Simibufi's burrow. Hearing this news, Hyunsuk feels utterly hopeless, realizing he must defeat Doris alone, an almost impossible feat. However, at that moment, Doris's trembling body suddenly coughs twice with blood flowing from the corner of his mouth. This makes Hyunsuk instantly realize that Doris's devastating technique comes with extremely severe side effects. Hyunsuk immediately takes off running and asks Rachel to tell him what beasts are nearby. She points him toward the 11 direction, saying if he keeps going, he'll reach the ogre habitat. She notes that ogres are very strong creatures with combat power generally above 30,000. But for Doris in his current form, they are swatted away like roadside trash. For about 10 minutes, one runs and one chases. Doris gradually loses patience, stops in his tracks, and unleashes the 3rd stage of Bloom. Instantly, waves of immense power flow endlessly from within his body. But at that moment, Doris's heart suddenly sends out a sharp pain. He suffers violent coughing as mouthfuls of fresh blood pour from his mouth. Rachel senses that the demon energy within him is rapidly depleting. Doris wonders what is happening and if he has already reached his limit, realizing he must have exhausted too much stamina during the chase. Realizing the situation is dire, Doris immediately turns and runs. Hyunsuk asks where his buddy is going and tells him to just wait. Doris warns that once he recovers his strength, Hyunsuk is dead. Perhaps because his stamina is too depleted, Doris only runs a few steps before Hyunsuk catches up. Hyunsuk tells him he can't escape and clenches his fist, gathering all his mana into the Laudrin combat technique, 7th form, Destruction, Shockwave. To his surprise, even though severely overextended, Doris still catches the strongest attack. Both sides' mana continuously collides in the air, but an unknown force intervenes, instantly sending Hyunsuk flying. He asks himself what is going on and looks up to see Doris clinging to Hermes' leg, begging for mercy and asking her to save him. But what responds to him is the intense demonic power bursting from Hermes. She tells Doris to shut up and asks how he could be stupid enough to be beaten this badly by a mere human. Doris immediately falls silent. Taking advantage of their stunned moment, Hyunsuk dashes forward and says that just as they agreed, he has successfully defeated a battalion commander. The instant his words fall, Hyunsuk's kick slams hard into the back of Doris's head. He says that the statement that he defeated a battalion commander isn't wrong. Hermes' enormous lips split horizontally as she remarks how fascinating he is, and her laughter bursts forth uncontrollably. In the office, Hermes questions the situation, stating that she told him to defeat a battalion commander and that this was the method he used. She notes that he exhausted every method he could think of, but she didn't expect him to turn the troops into such chaos. After hearing Hyunsuk's explanation, Hermes bursts out laughing and asks what on earth goes through his head to reach such conclusions, adding that she would love to crack it open and see. Hyunsuk freezes upon hearing this and asks her to please restrain her curiosity, saying he would be most grateful. Hermes feels Hyunsuk is exploiting a loophole in her words, but considering this is the first time, she grudgingly acknowledges that he completed the mission. She tells him she doesn't like this and warns him not to let it happen again. Hyunsuk can only nod like a submissive underling and says, "Yes, my lord, thank you very much." Returning to Popo's residence, Hyunsuk collapses on the floor and lets out a phew, thinking that he really thought he was going to die. He says today was utterly exhausting, and that every moment felt like walking on thin ice. He then asks about the enhancement form Doris used, noting it seems to be a martial skill unique to the demon race. Rachel suggests they might ask Lodrin about it. Hearing their conversation, Popo, who is resting at home, pokes out its head and calls out tentatively. Hyunsuk tells him, all right, and acknowledges that Popo worked hard too. He tells Popo he is sorry he couldn't take better care of him. After hearing this, Popo chirps energetically, seemingly indicating it's fine. Hyunsuk keeps stroking Popo's head, remarking on how cute he is. He mentions that he does feel a bit bad about Doris because the commander treated him pretty well, yet he deceived him in the end. Rachel's eyes narrow to slits as she asks if he is serious, saying he doesn't look the least bit guilty to her. Hyunsuk covers his face with both hands and says, no, I'm sorry, truly sorry, but his upturned lips show through. Rachel tells him to take his hands away, accusing him of smiling right now. After defeating Doris, Hyunsuk jumps all the way to level 420, and his combat power reaches a terrifying 13,936 points. He tells himself, excellent, and decides to keep this momentum and push forward. Rachel brings over a large mug of beer and suggests they celebrate with a drink, toasting to taking down Doris. 3 days later at dawn, Hyunsuk arrives at the training grounds early, even half an hour before Lodrin. When the commander arrives, Hyunsuk greets him. Lodrin acknowledges his arrival and congratulates him on defeating Doris. Hyunsuk thanks him and slowly walks over, taking the opportunity to ask if Lodrin knows about battle aura. Lodrin closes his eyes thoughtfully and nods after a moment, saying that, though the timing is a bit early, if it is Hyunsuk, it should be fine. Actually, Lodrin had originally planned to teach battle aura much later because it is quite dangerous. He notes that if one practices battle aura without a solid foundation, it could ruin the body. Lodrin begins explaining the principles of battle aura, stating it is roughly divided into two types. The first is tangible battle aura that follows specific technique patterns. The second is intangible battle aura, like flowing breath, which has no patterns to follow. He explains that compared to regular battle aura, intangible battle aura is much rarer, and the bloom of blossom that Doris used belongs to this intangible type. According to Hyunsuk's understanding, the first type is an attack skill, while the second is a buff skill. Lodrin continues explaining that the evolution form is an ancient combat skill, and that anyone who can use demon energy can learn it, but very few use it because it comes with extremely severe side effects. Hyunsuk falls into thought and asks if it is possible for him to learn this evolution form skill as well, noting he seems to have dark magic within him too. But Lodrin explains that it merely exists within his body and is not dark magic generated by himself. Hyunsuk argues that it shouldn't be a problem and points out that even if something goes wrong, they still have Lady Mariette there. He expresses that he wants to learn this technique even though it is dangerous. Lodrin holds his forehead and bows his head in thought for a long time. Hyunsuk immediately kneels down and grabs Lodrin's leg, saying that if he doesn't teach him, he will die. He reminds the commander of Hermes' temperament, suggesting she might make him duel a regiment commander tomorrow. Under his desperate pleading, Lodrin can only agree, but warns him to be prepared as it may endanger his life. Hyunsuk says he understands, and that every moment he is there, he is gambling with his life. Lodrin then says, then let's begin. Meanwhile, in the underground prison of the Gelen Empire's cathedral at this moment, the Pope stands before a bloody and battered man who is hanging there, none other than Ossel Geffen. Having failed the mission to rescue the Saintess, he has become a criminal. His cracked lips tremble as he asks the Pope if another round of torture is starting, referring to it as torment disguised as penance. The Pope nods and acknowledges Geffen's words, stating that he will give him a chance to atone for his crimes. The Pope's nauseating words make Geffen want to retch, but he doesn't want to die yet, so he asks what the chance is. The Pope's expression turns cold as he tells him to kill Abluson Mariette. Geffen suspects he misheard and asks what the Pope said, questioning why he would do this and saying it makes no sense. He asks what is gained from killing the candidate Saintess. The Pope doesn't answer and only tells him the reason need not be known. Geffen shakes his head and says he can't accept this mission, noting that the glutton in the Black Castle is not someone he can handle. Hearing this, the Pope's stern expression instantly softens, and he tells Geffen not to worry because they will act when the glutton is away. Additionally, he says he will dispatch 3 knights to assist him. He tells Geffen that this time he must succeed, stating that on the path to glory, failure absolutely cannot be tolerated. Meanwhile, on the other side, after using evolution form for the first time, Hyunsuk foams at the mouth and collapses on the ground, barely breathing. Fortunately, Lodrin calls for Mariette. She asks if they are both insane for making a human practice a combat technique specifically designed for demons. Lodrin explains that Hyunsuk said he felt fine, and that over time, the demon energy remaining in his body would decrease. Mariette stares at Laudren with a dangerous look and asks if he is a cleric, questioning how he can determine something is safe when he is not an expert himself. She states that if left untreated, Hyunsuk's survival rate is less than 1%. She explains that previously, she wrapped and sealed the demon energy within him, but now it has all been released. In this situation, Mariette says she has only one method, which is to fully fuse the demonic power within the boy's body with his flesh. She notes this is completely different from the previous situation where demonic power merely lingered within, describing it as a fundamental transformation of the human species that shouldn't be possible by normal logic. She explains she will use holy power to suppress the demon energy and then spread it widely and evenly, adjusting the concentration in each part until it's within a range his body can accept. Laudren's expression turns grave as he asks if this is really possible. Mariette says she's not sure either, as she has never done this before and there is no precedent. She adds there is also a possibility that the demon energy will resist the holy power and become violent. Mariette grasps Hyunsuk's hand and says that regardless, they have no choice but to at least try. As her words fall, a dazzling golden light instantly illuminates the surroundings, and holy power surging from Mariette's body begins seeping into Hyunsuk's. 3 days later, Hyunsuk groans and opens his eyes, questioning what happened to him. Before he can even get up, Popo and Rachel rush over to his side. They cry out that he is awake, and that their hero has finally woken up. Rachel stares intently at him and asks if he is all right. Hyunsuk answers in a weak voice that he is fine. His memory stops at the point of learning the evolution form, but he notes that his body does not seem abnormal. Hyunsuk checks his status screen and realizes that what he feared most has happened. The box symbol that had suddenly appeared on his status screen not long ago has now changed to demon energy. He tells Rachel he is really done for now and asks if it is possible for a hero to possess demon energy. Shortly after he wakes up, Hermes and Laudren also arrive upon hearing the news. Hermes mentions that she told Laudren he would wake up. Having heard the entire story from Laudren, she finds it fascinating that he attempted to convert demon energy into human power. She asks why he didn't tell her about such an interesting idea, and then her voice suddenly drops. Hermes observes that there seems to be a reason humans call Mariette a saintess, to keep him alive under such circumstances. She asks, how about she, gives him a little help. In an instant, Hermes' mouth slowly splits open, and she approaches step by step with a smile, releasing her magic power. Just as Hyunsuk tries to retreat, massive amounts of magic power flood into his body. In excruciating pain, his consciousness gradually fades. Hermes tells Laudren not to worry and that he'll be fine. She says it's all right and to just sleep it off, telling Hyunsuk he should feel honored. With this inexplicable statement, his consciousness cuts out completely. Hermes then tells Laudren that the demon lord has summoned her and she needs to go, noting she has something to entrust to him. In the blink of an eye, 3 days have passed since Hermes left. The collapsed Hyunsuk fortunately recovers quickly, all thanks to Mariette's efforts. During these days, she has been taking meticulous care of him. Hyunsuk thanks Lady Mariette, but she tells him there is no need to thank her, and that it was his own willpower that helped him through. Mariette suddenly says quietly that he is her only hope. This statement leaves Hyunsuk confused, but Mariette refuses to say more. She says today's treatment is finished. As she leaves, Hyunsuk wonders why she keeps suddenly saying these strange things, and just how much she is hiding from him. After Mariette leaves, Hyunsuk immediately finds Laudren and requests to continue training. Laudren looks at him with concern and asks if he is sure it's okay. Hyunsuk says that Lady Mariette also said that as long as he doesn't mobilize magic power, it's fine. Listening to Hyunsuk's words, Laudren's thoughts have already wandered far away. He notes it's been 3 days since Commander Hermes left. He thinks about how this meeting held at the Demon Lord's castle is an annual event, but for some reason, he has a bad feeling about it this year. Only after Hyunsuk's repeated calls does Laudren snap back. Hyunsuk notes he has been really busy these days because he shoulders all the responsibilities of the Legion commander. He asks if there is anything he can help with. Laudren shakes his head and says it's fine. He tells him the commander will be back soon anyway, so not to worry about him and to focus on taking care of himself. Hearing these touching words, Hyunsuk immediately bows deeply and says he understands. Looking at his beaming face, Laudren has another thought. He realizes Hyunsuk has indeed grown stronger, though the boy himself doesn't seem to have noticed yet. He wonders if this evolution is from his body adapting to demon energy, or perhaps his body growing stronger as it adapts to the demonic power. Just as he's contemplating the reason for this growth, Laudren's expression suddenly freezes. He realizes this is holy power. In the Demon Army 3rd Legion headquarters, Laudren actually senses holy power. Though candidate Saintess Mariette is indeed stationed here, what he senses now is definitely not her power. He realizes someone is hiding holy power. He senses 4 instances of covertly lurking holy power. Laudren states that looks like trouble's brewing. His sudden statement stuns Hyunsuk, who asks what trouble. Laudren says there is no time to explain, and tells him to stay here. Perhaps to keep their movements hidden, the invaders are advancing slowly. The knights feel the infiltration is going quite smoothly, and ask if it's because the glutton isn't here. Unlike the knight's relaxed state, Geffen is quite brave this time, and tells them to keep it down. He warns that the glutton may not be here, but another monster exists in this castle called the Red Nightmare. Just as he finishes speaking, the arriving Lodron successfully intercepts them. The invaders are 4 humans wearing black hoods, and they are clearly stunned when they see Lodron suddenly appear. One identifies him as the Red Nightmare and warns that this guy's demonic power is extraordinary, telling everyone to be extremely careful. The leading Geffen immediately issues combat orders to the squad. He tells Lucas and Nell to go find Saintess Mariette, while Orca and he face the Red Nightmare together. Looking at those eyes, Lodron can't help but frown. He notes that guy is at least division commander level. He observes that Geffen is immersed in madness, and one can sense division commander level magic power from him. He assumes the target is probably to rescue Mariette. He reasons that, since they bear such an important mission, they must have brought the most elite forces. At this moment, Hyunsuk's voice comes from behind. He tells Lodron this looks quite serious, so he rushed over too. Though Lodron outwardly asks if he didn't tell him to stay put and wait, inwardly he's actually full of gratitude. He tells Hyunsuk to listen and that their target is the Saintess. As Lodron speaks, he removes his necklace and tosses it to him. He tells him to take the Saintess and flee immediately, and to use this necklace as proof to summon the senior officers of their unit. Hyunsuk nods without hesitation and says he understands. At the same time, the human side also begins to move. Geffen and Lodron engage in fierce combat. Geffen orders his team to stop that guy, noting that if the situation gets out of hand, it will be troublesome. 2 knights immediately chase after Hyunsuk. Lodron declares that without the commander's orders, they absolutely cannot take the Saintess. At this moment, Lodron swings his fist toward the ground and executes the Lodron combat technique 7th form, Explosion, Shockwave. The instant his fist contacts the ground, it is accompanied by a tremendous boom. The ground flips and heaves. Thanks to Lodron's help, Hyunsuk successfully escapes the knights and rushes straight to Mariette's room. At this moment, the hero system suddenly pops up with a notification. Evil villains are attempting to kill Ablis and Mariette. As the hero, you have a duty to protect this candidate Saintess. The objective is to protect her, and the reward is 1,000 hero points. Hyunsuk finds the statement about evil villains bizarre, as he assumes the group is likely a rescue team sent by the Holy Jellin Empire, the supposedly righteous side. Furthermore, he notes the reward is exceptionally generous, as the bounty is as high as 1,000 hero points. Hyunsuk shakes his head to clear these distracting thoughts and bursts into the Saintess's room. Since he holds Lodron's necklace in his hand, the Minotaurs guarding the Saintess do not obstruct him. Hyunsuk informs them that the invaders are there. The Minotaurs declare that, by Lodron's orders, they will defend the place to the death and stop anyone from entering. They tell the human to take the Saintess and run quickly. As the situation is urgent, Hyunsuk scoops Mariette up in his arms and asks her to please forgive his rudeness. Meanwhile, in the Demon Army 3rd Legion headquarters conference room, Commander Roigel is currently holding a meeting with officers. Currently, 2 commanders are stationed at the Black Castle, and each commander oversees 5 battalion commanders. Because Doris died in battle, only 9 battalion commanders remain. During the meeting, a goblin suddenly reports an emergency. He explains that humans are attacking the castle because they are hunting the Saintess. Roigel does not understand what is going on and comes out to meet Hyunsuk. This commander's appearance is indistinguishable from a human's. Hyunsuk recognizes him as the high-ranking demon who appeared during Doris's commander selection battle. Roigel asks him to explain in detail what happened. Hyunsuk takes out Lodron's necklace and recounts everything that just happened. After hearing this, Roigel looks utterly perplexed and asks how it is possible that humans want to kill the Saintess. However, the very next second, as if hearing something, Roigel shouts loudly for everyone to get out of the way. Sure enough, 2 black shadows suddenly descend from above, their target pointing directly at the Saintess. Though Roigel immediately casts action restraint in an attempt to bind the attackers, he realizes the distance is too far, and he cannot make it in time. Just as the hero quest described, this group's purpose is not to rescue the Saintess, but to kill her. Sharp blades whistle toward them with the momentum to pierce through anything. Suddenly, Hyunsuk utilizes the Lodron combat technique 7th form, Explosion, Shockwave. At this critical moment, he successfully strikes the attackers.